And welcome back again to another episode of your favorite podcast, Thought Riot, True Crime and Criminal Culture Podcast. My name's Brendan.
And I am Malia.
And welcome to the show.
Yes, welcome.
Yes, so I have an entrance statement. Some of you will get it, some of you won't. I remind myself every day that nothing I say today will teach me anything, so if I'm going to learn, I must do it by listening.
Nice.
Yes. Larry King at his finest.
You trying to look like Larry King?
Yeah, one of our viewers suggested it, and that's one of the things that we try hard to do is respond to our viewers. Someone was like, hey, you should put on, you should do the whole get up, the whole Larry King get up. And I was like, yeah, I got it. Let's do it.
Would have been better with the stash.
I know, it would have been, but it's not work friendly for business sales. So, but welcome everybody. Super happy you're here. This is episode 22 on your favorite True Crime and Criminal Culture Podcast. So we commit to being and bringing you honest, intelligent, unscripted, and interesting conversations, bringing information we get and following it to wherever it leads, holding nothing back and sharing brutal honesty the entire time. We censor nothing.
And talk about everything.
Everything. All right. So, yeah, welcome to the show. Make sure you guys do all the podcast things. We are on every podcast platform, every social media. So if you're listening right now, hit that like button, hit those stars, leave a comment, and let us know how we're doing. We got a Discord, and the invite link is in the scrolling bar above my head. Twitter is at Thought Riot Pod, while all the rest of the social media is /Thought Riot Podcast. So hop on there, continue the conversation, and come hang out with us.
Absolutely.
You want to give the rundown on the live streams?
We live stream from 9 to 11 p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube and Twitch, but we don't get too much traction on Twitch. YouTube's where it's at. That's where most of our viewers and the conversation is happening. So yeah, come join us. It's on Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Yes,
nights.
Yes. And it's super fun. That's really where we get more interactive with you guys. Lately, we've been doing premieres, and then we will do the True Crime Talk Show right after.
If you don't know what a premiere is, on YouTube, we premiere our clips, which is basically just the video becoming live, where people can view it, and live chat. There's a live chat feature, and we watch along with you and comment in the chat and everything, but it's not a live stream.
Yes. So hop on there. It's a lot of fun, and
yeah, but we do the
come
live
hang out.
We do the live stream after, and then go deeper into it.
Yes, we do. We do. So come hang out. It's a lot of fun, and we will see you there. Mm-hmm. So hopping right into it here, the Thought Riot True Crime Content Creator of the Week is J is for Justice.
Yay!
Yeah, super happy to offer it to J is for Justice. She actually hopped on the True Crime Talk Show just the other day when we were using her video because we covered the Papa Rogers topic last week, and we were premiering that video. And J is for Justice has a really great video with literally every single Papa Rogers post, comment, and everything. And for those of you listening, if you didn't listen to last week, Papa Roger is thought to by many to be Bryan Kohberger, who is the current suspect in the Idaho 4 tragedy and arrest and case going on right now. There is no current information that confirms that one way or the other, so we were going through that and kind of analyzing it. So
Papa Roger was a anonymous Facebook poster with like an AI generated image, created a group talking about the Idaho 4 case, and people thought they had too much insider knowledge, and there's a lot of people who think it was Bryan Kohberger.
Yep. Well, J is for Justice has video on there with every single post that Papa Roger has ever posted, and it was incredible.
It was
and she
comprehensive, yes.
Yeah, and she just hopped on there while we were going through that, and we appreciate that. We support anybody and everybody. Really, the only people we wouldn't in any situation is if someone's being a bully and being mean. We just don't tolerate that.
We just ignore. You don't exist.
yeah, absolutely. Make sure you guys check her out. So her handle and tag is JIS4 and then justice. So at JIS4 and then justice. But man, she pumps out content like a lot.
Yeah.
What she's doing is where we really hope to be in the future. The news coverage, the updates, like as soon as stuff is dropping, it's really, really, really incredible. And she's another content creator that really talks about everything, the full image. And what I mean by that is, everyone knows how mainstream media is. Whatever side the majority of the story is on is normally the direction all of mainstream media is going to go when it comes to crime and cases and things like that. And J is for Justice is really good about covering everything. So, I mean, if you guys haven't checked her out, I highly, highly, highly suggest you do. There is a lot of really good content on her channel that, I learn a lot from, so I'm assuming you would too. Make sure you check her out. And J is for Justice, we appreciate you, and hopefully we get some Thought Rioters over to you.
Yeah, she covers like everything current in true crime, and she like the Kohberger Papa Roger stuff. She covered that comprehensively. I really enjoy her deep dives, but she does like a lot of updates too. But yeah, I suggest her. I recommend her. I think she's wonderful. Good vibes.
Yeah. Absolutely. So make sure you guys check her out. Again, it is JIS4 Justice.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So we will do a brief rundown of what we're going to be covering tonight, and then we'll go into our breaking news. So I will say mine first. And so last week we covered Papa Roger, like we just talked about. Well, I am actually going to be covering the Elliot Rodger case in response, well, I guess not response, in connection with that in the Papa Roger. Yeah, because I brought it up. Yeah, and I think it's, I think there's some worth there to it. I think it could be the reason why Roger was added on there, regardless of who Papa Roger ends up being. Is it law enforcement? Is it Bryan Kohberger? Is it a local? The way Roger is spelled is an uncommon way of spelling, and Elliot Rodger was spelled that way in an uncommon way. Now, Papa Roger and Bryan Kohberger in the Idaho 4 had a big supposed incel ties to it and storyline with the mainstream news and media, and Elliot Rodger is like the king of incels, essentially. So we'll be digging into that, and then we will be also digging into police corruption. Now, it's not tied directly to the Idaho 4, but I've been chewing on this idea for a while, right? Because police corruption's real, but for whatever reason, when we start talking about the Idaho 4 and the possibility of police corruption, it's like if you believe he's guilty, then you have to believe that there could not in any way, shape, or form believe there's police corruption there.
Because it could be both. It could be corruption
both.
And guilty.
Exactly. And that's what I'm trying to argue. And
yeah.
That we were just talking about the Idaho 4 Reddit subreddit and the fact that we just got booted from there.
Ooh.
Right. And which
I'll wear it like a badge of honor.
Which is ridiculous because we do not commit to Bryan Kohberger being innocent or being guilty. I don't know. So the fact that our podcast is booted from there, it makes me wonder, is that subreddit being ran by police? Was it originally opened by police trying to find out information? Because really, when I think of our content, the only people that I think would be offended by it would probably be police there.
Yeah, because we have a ton of people who believe he's guilty, content creators included, who still respect our input.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, because we're not one way or the other. We're just not going to join a side until we see the totality of the evidence.
Yeah. At least a majority of it. At least enough to sell me on it. And when I compare this case to others, I just don't see that yet. So, but yeah. So we're going to be digging into that. And then for the third one, we are going to be talking about another quadruple homicide knife case.
Interesting.
It is interesting. And I just posted a poll, so I'm going to do that story last in hopes that we can get an understanding of kind of where the general public is at and how they feel about that, and kind of use that as a direction. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And if you don't know what I mean, you will know what I mean. Keep watching.
Looking forward to it.
Yes.
Okay, so tonight I am going to be covering fog.
Fog?
Fog, as it relates to the Kohberger Idaho 4 case.
Okay.
And what I mean is fog is a data broker.
Okay.
I won't go too much further into it, but it's really interesting in learning that there are ways police can get a ton of information on you without a single search warrant.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to be digging into a Delphi-related topic, which is the death of Detective and Federal Agent Greg Ferenczi. Okay. He was killed in 2021, and it's interesting. I've seen a lot of commenters bring this up in connection with the Delphi case, saying that, you know, one of the guys from the memorandum was murdered. One of the guys who was one of the detectives that continued to work on the Odinist angle that was cited in the Delphi Franks memorandum, he was killed. Interesting.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be digging into the new kind of breaking case of baby Zeke and his father. Baby Zeke passed away recently in Idaho. And it's really tragic. His father, Jeremy Best, just had his first Zoom hearing. We're learning more about the family. And I covered it as an update last week, and a lot has happened since then, because baby Zeke at that time was just missing. His father had taken off with him. So I wanted to go into all the updates on that case, because it's really tragic. I think there's just so much, that really hurts with that case. But
yeah,
that's it.
All right. Well, it sounds like we have a pretty awesome show set up for you guys tonight. So we will dig right in here and get directly into the breaking news of the week.
Yeah.
So number one here, and this is more of a personal interest. So I'm wondering if you guys will find it interesting too. And what I mean by that is, you remember the case we covered. Gosh, I don't remember what the main topic of it was. I don't remember if it had to do with Manson or if it had to do with the CIA, FBI related program, Operation, what was it? Was it Chaos?
I think so.
I think it's Operation Chaos. That was in the 70s. So in the 70s, our government was worried that these
hippies,
these groups like the Black Panthers, like the hippie movement, like the anti-war movement,
counterculture going against the grain type movements that were going on at that time.
Yeah, I was just trying to explain it in a way, though, that was relatable to now, because, yes, it was counterculture then. It isn't considered counterculture now.
Correct.
But our government was afraid of those groups. So what they did is they put together an operation, and I could be calling it the wrong thing. I think it was Operation Chaos. Do you want to look it up real quick?
Yeah,
just
go
so
ahead.
I know I'm not saying it wrong. And it was in the 70s, and they targeted these groups, all right? Well, there was a bombing that was done supposedly by 2 Black Panthers, and it really changed the way society looked at the Black Panthers. And these two men were suspects, and they were part of the Black Panthers. Now, one of them has already passed away, and the Ed Poindexter just recently passed in prison too. And what's really strange is there's a lot of question marks around this case in general. And it seems like some of those question marks are coming into today even. Like what I'm reading here says that they're going to be investigating the details around his death, which makes it sound like, okay, is there something that needs to be investigated? Is there something strange going on with it? Did something stand out that we need to be aware of?
It could be the media running with it a little bit because he's who he is, for one, and for two, I think, isn't it pretty much any time a prisoner dies, they have to do an investigation, and if it's accidental, it's apparent and it'll be closed quickly. If it's not, it might take a while, but I mean, it's really hard to know how prisoners pass away. They do not want to offer up that information.
Yeah, and it doesn't say in here. So you might be onto something by the media making a bigger deal about this than it actually is, because he's an older man. The original, his partner, or what the claim is, who was his partner in this bombing, David Rice, died in 2016. So these are older guys. You will have probably seen them on the screen by now if you're watching the video. So it makes sense. They're at the age that it wouldn't be surprising to pass. Now, I will say that both of these men, the entire time that they've been in prison, have said that they're innocent and have been fighting non-stop to appeal this all the way up into his death. There was a recording of an eyewitness that said that these two men approached that eyewitness and asked him to stage the bomb at this site that happened. What's interesting, though, is when they got a voice recorder for the eyewitness's voice and the recording that they presented in court didn't match.
Weird.
Right. Like, there's a lot of question marks around it. So I thought it was super interesting, and it's one of those topics that highlight and tie directly into, like, the FBI and FBI corruption, and I know that's something we've talked about recently, so I thought I would share it with everybody. I think it's super interesting.
Yeah, and it was Operation Chaos or Operation MH Chaos.
Okay.
And it was actually, it says it's a CIA domestic espionage project.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it is domestic, and I think it was the CIA, but the FBI helped as well, and it included MLK, and it included quite a few different factions of the government.
Yeah, it says it was established under Lyndon B. Johnson and expanded under Nixon.
Yep.
From 1967 to 1974.
Yeah. So it makes me wonder, were these guys set up in a way that gave the government the control in this situation? Maybe. I know that the 70s, the 60s and the 70s, and I don't know if you knew this, or any of you watching, but in the 60s and the 70s, we had the largest percentage of corrupt police officers.
Wow.
Yeah, statistically, it's upwards of 50+% of the nation's police officers were believed to be corrupt. Yeah.
What was going on?
No oversight is what I think. No oversight. And that's exactly what's going on now with corrupt police, is there's not enough oversight. There is not enough body cams, recordings, constant accountability and insight into what they're doing. So that's what I believe it is. I feel like the 60s and 70s is right at that time frame where we're coming into like the technology era, but not technology enough to where you have body cams, cameras, and a good amount of follow-up,
Yeah, it's weird that it all accumulated or culminated in that era, and also that's going on the era of the serial killer too.
I know.
It's really strange how wild that time period was with serial killers, corrupt police officers, civil rights, so many things going on. I mean, literally LSD was given to the public as part of an experiment.
I know it.
There's so many wild things that went on back then, and it kind of makes you wonder, is it continuing now and we just don't realize it? Because the people then, yes, some of them were like, gosh, the world's going crazy, it's going to end, people have felt like that for a long time. But people also felt really safe back then, strangely enough.
I know it. Yeah.
Like, you hear all the people from back then, that were alive back then saying, oh, we got to ride our bikes all over town as kids and we were so safe. And it's like, but you weren't.
Yeah, referring directly to the interview we did of a victim that was a hair away from being abducted and ended, like somebody that was done, 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later, or whatever it was. By Rodney Alcala, yep. And that victim was, or suspected, almost victim, was mentioning that even though that happened, they still felt safe to ride their bikes all over at like age 12, 13, and it was just a different time. The way that we looked at things was different, and I think it could be attributed to the lack of technology, because really you only heard about local news, you didn't hear about national news, so you weren't in a constant state of fear for people that can't handle national news. You know what I mean?
I think that's absolutely what it was, is that you don't have the constant feed of horrible things happening in the world.
Yeah. Absolutely. But let me know what you think, you guys. Do you find it interesting? Should we dive into this case and look into the details of these two Black Panthers that have supposedly, were a part of a bombing back then? So,
yeah, for sure. So, recently it's Edna, Texas, a young 16-year-old cheerleader was found passed away, deceased, in the bathtub by her mom. And we don't have too much information of what happened to her, but we know that this is most likely going to be a capital murder case once they find who this was. She was supposed to be...
So it's not the mom?
No, the mom had just come home, actually.
It's really rare that someone under 18, it's not someone close. Is it a single mother household?
I believe so, but...
Oh, are we sure the mom wasn't involved?
I don't think she was. I don't think anyone's even questioning that, but we're going to let the police do their job because we have no information on this case. I'm not going to start calling out the mom.
I'm not going to either, but I'm going to call out the statistics, the national statistics that are pretty dang reliable. And, you know, we went over those statistics ourselves on stream, talking about how when there is an assault, when there is a murder, when there is a situation like this, over 70% of the time, it is immediate family that lives in the house.
I understand that.
So
for sure.
I just hope the police are questioning the mom. And this is one of those situations that really sucks, where if you're that mom and you lost your daughter, listen, you're a victim, and I'm really, really sorry for you, but wouldn't you want the police to find who did it? And if the only way to do that is to make sure without a doubt that you can be cleared so they can move on to someone else, wouldn't you want to be questioned harsh?
Yeah, 100%. I would be questioned 100%.
I would want them to do it straight. Give it to me the right way.
Right. I would say get what you need because I want you to go out and find who did this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we know so far is that Elizabeth Medina was a cheerleader at Edna High School. She was 16 years old, found deceased on Tuesday by her mother, which Tuesday would be December 5th. She was supposed to be at a Christmas parade with her cheer team.
Okay.
But I'm assuming didn't go. And I found pictures of some of the Christmas events from that night, and I couldn't find her in them. So I'm assuming she didn't go. Her mother comes home, finds her in the bathtub. We don't know the manner of death. We have no idea what happened. The Texas Rangers are on the investigation. They're on the case. And the law enforcement in that area are asking anybody with information to call EPD at 361-782-6522 or Crime Stoppers, which is 361-552-CASH or 2274.
So I actually have a little bit more information than that article. When I was doing my research, I came upon this. I'm glad you brought it up because this was one of the topics I was like right on the verge of bringing up. But the mom from a different article came home after work, and according to what police are saying, she was already gone in the bathtub, and the mom didn't see her in the bath and used the bathroom, got ready, and left. Strange,
Got ready
right?
and left to go where?
To go to whatever this event is.
Oh. Because, yes, I knew that she came home from work, and I was about to get into her mother's statements.
Oh, okay.
But I don't see that in any of these statements.
Yeah, I just saw it on the article I was watching. It had a video, and the mom says something like, I was shocked, and I wish I would have known she was in there when I was there, something of that nature. And I was like,
so
oof.
She went to the parade and was like, oh, my daughter's not here, and then goes back home and finds her?
And she had been there the whole time. When she went home and got ready, her daughter had been there the whole time. That's why I was saying, like, nothing points at the mom. Nothing. But statistically, like...
Yeah, I'm sure the investigators will exhaust that lead.
Yeah.
They're supposed to look into the closest people to the victim. So I'm sure they'll look into it.
Yeah, and if she truly has nothing to do with it, I feel awful for her. I can't imagine that. I don't even have any comprehension of what that would feel like to know that you came home and your child was already passed there.
Yeah.
The whole time you were getting ready to go back out.
Yeah.
That's a really crappy situation. I feel really horrible for her.
That would be horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no way to know without having like a good understanding of that household. Like, how common was it that they let other people in that house? Was it really uncommon? Was the mother's and daughter's relationship toxic in any way? You know what I mean? Like, these are the questions I was asking in my head when I was reading it.
Yeah, I get that for sure.
So
that's really odd. I didn't read that anywhere, and I was digging pretty deep into it. I found like social media pages and all kinds of things. They've made a GoFundMe, or I think her aunt has, Anna Medina. And we'll post the GoFundMe. It's just Justice for Elizabeth Medina. But yeah, that's wild. I
agree. I think it's really strange, and it feels really strange to me because they don't list the TOD, the time of death.
No, they don't.
And I'm curious. Does the time of death place it around the same time the mother could be getting home? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
When you're looking for true justice, you have to ask these hard questions, and there's a way to do it respectfully, and I'm not pointing fingers at the mother. I'm just talking about statistically, it is normally someone in the immediate family, so.
Yeah, I understand that. And, her mother's given some statements to media saying, she's heartbroken. She wants justice for her daughter, that they've only lived in Edna, Texas for about a year. Before that, they moved there from Nebraska. And it was just the most horrible way a mother could find her daughter. She was murdered in cold blood. Yeah. And she was an only child. That was her mother's only child. But yeah, she was supposed to be at the Christmas parade, never made it. She said she's lost her world, her everything. Everything I do was for her. She feels broken and lost without her best friend.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah, she said that she was an amazing little girl, and she was very, I don't know, I think she says what any parent would say, I think. She was an incredible young woman, and she's devastated. It sounds like most of her family is devastated.
Yeah.
They've created a Justice for... Wait, what is the name of it? Because it's Lizzo, Justice for Lizzo, Facebook group too. So, go and support if you can, anybody with information, call those lines. That's all we got at this point. And it's really sad looking at these girls' pictures on social media. Like, she was so beautiful. And, she had some pictures on her Instagram of her working like hard in the gym and stuff. And it's just sad, man.
Yeah.
I hope they find whoever did this.
It's horrible anytime a child of all people, lose their life before they can even hit adulthood.
Can have a life. Yeah.
Yep. But let us know what you guys think. All right. So for next breaking news here, we have, and this one is crazy. Woman tries to set fire to Martin Luther King Jr.'s birth home, Atlanta police say. So apparently this woman, 26 years old, has been arrested on allegations she attempted to set fire Thursday night to the Atlanta birth home of, civil rights icon Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It was around 5:45 p.m. The suspect walked up, started pouring gasoline on the front of the property, which is located at 501 Auburn Avenue, and before she could light it, was stopped by pedestrians. Other citizens in the area. That's horrible. I don't understand it. And, without getting too political, my first thought is, okay, what what race was this person?
What's
it was
your
a black
motive?
woman. So I don't know what that could be. I'm not sure. It doesn't give any details here. So this, I do know that the house is now owned by a National Park Service. So in 2018, the King family sold it so that the National Park Service could preserve it. And it's now used as like a historic museum type property where people visit and look at and everything. So it's traveled a lot. People come there all the time and want to see the house where King grew up,
Of
you know?
course.
So I can't come up with anything, and that's very rare for me to not be able to come up with anything. What could be the cause of this?
Well, for a second, I thought, did she find out, like, did she not know her whole life that Martin Luther King had, like, some sexual proclivities? And, like, found out and was, like, freaked out? I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. That's, like, the best I can come up with.
I can't come up with it either. I don't know what the reason could be.
Because those what Martin Luther King did behind closed doors with the consent of his wife is none of our business at all, and does not cancel out the incredible change he made and footprint he left on the earth.
Well, here's the thing. Like, clearly, Martin Luther King Jr. was about love. He was not about getting things done by aggression and violence. He was about talking through things and about love. And that, as funny as it might be, it bleeds into his adult life and, you know, sex life as well. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that we can know and understand him as a person and still not have that bring any baggage onto what he did.
No, because the way I saw it reported when I first learned about Martin Luther King, was in a way that he was cheating on his wife, but he wasn't.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. He was just a very sexually open man, especially for that time, and people tried to use that and exploit him using that, and his wife knew the whole time.
Yep.
So yeah, I agree with you. So I don't know if that could have anything to do with it. I guess I'm just shocked thinking about that being a possibility, because that kind of anger over somebody's what they do behind closed doors.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, it's just
agreed.
very strange feeling.
Yeah, I just couldn't think of anything else. That's just like the first thing that popped in my head.
Yeah.
Or maybe she, likes, like the Panther movement better and was, I don't know, high or something and got angry and wanted to go burn down Martin Luther King's house.
Yeah.
Because she's like, you shouldn't be the icon this person should be.
Or was she hired by somebody?
Oh. But what would be the point of that?
I mean, I think people can connect those dots depending on the motive for the people that hired her. So, I don't know. I would love to know what you guys think. I think this is absolutely horrible, and we need more people and more visibility on Martin Luther King Jr. We need to be looking at how he handled things and put those tactics into play today. So it's a really unfortunate situation that you have a really young black woman trying to burn down the home of, a black leader and human rights leader that grew up in that house. It's a strange situation, and I'm really curious what you guys think about it.
Yeah, it is strange.
Very strange. But let us know.
So, there has been another arrest in the Crystal Rogers case. If you don't know about the Crystal Rogers case, we covered it a while back, so I'll recommend that video. But she is a mother who went missing 4th of July weekend in 2015. She has never been found, but is presumed to be dead, and there have been other murders in connection with her case, like the murder of her father, Tommy Ballard, and also the murder of a police officer who made a stop to move some branches and was shot and killed. And there is suspicion around those that they are connected. There's also, the FBI actually just went to investigate something and said it was in connection with one of those cases, but wouldn't specify which one.
Really?
Yes. But there's been a third arrest. So far, last time we covered this, there had been the arrest of Brooks Hoke, who was her boyfriend at the time. And there had also been the arrest of Joseph Lawson. Now, we have the arrest of Stephen Lawson. Now, it is presumed that Stephen Lawson is the father of Joseph Lawson.
Okay.
But these media sources say they can't 100% confirm it, but it is assumed that, and you'll see pictures here, and they look a lot alike. One just has dark hair because they're younger. One has, grayed hair.
Yeah.
But their facial features look a lot alike. And it would make sense for them to be related considering they're connected to the main suspect in this case, which is her boyfriend, Brooks Hoke. Mm-hmm. Or whatever, Brooks Hoke. I have trouble saying his name. But, so he is charged with two things, same as his presumed son, which is conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with evidence. Do you remember when we very first talked about this? The first arrest was Joseph Lawson, and we were like, what?
Yeah.
Just conspiracy and tampering with evidence? There's no murderer?
Yep.
And then we got Brooks Hoke, who is presumed to be the murderer, and now we have this guy.
Yeah.
Which is the same charges as his presumed son, which is interesting.
It is interesting. Mm-hmm. Makes me wonder if they were hired, and that's what we theorized before.
Dude, lawyers dropped some bombshells recently in this case.
Really?
Yeah. So, now, the Lawsons were first heard of in an interrogation tape with Brooks Hoke with the Nelson County Sheriff's Department. He got a phone call, okay? The detective had asked who was on the other end of the line during a late-night phone call on the night Roger disappeared. He asked, who is Steve Lawson? Steve Lawson works for me. Okay, this wasn't the phone call. That was his brother. This is him asking him about a phone call he got.
Okay.
Yeah, on the night that Crystal disappeared. But he said that he worked for him. That Stephen Lawson worked for him, the boyfriend. He said he couldn't remember why he called him so late. Then he picked up his phone and called him from inside the interrogation room. Wait, so he got 2 phone calls that day? I actually didn't realize that. I didn't put 2 and 2 together in my head.
Yeah.
Until I just started reading the transcript.
Yeah.
I don't know why. But
strange.
He said, the other night you called me really, really late. I can't remember what you were calling me about. And it said it was a question about rental properties. And he said, so that begs the question in my mind, if she's in the truck next to you when she called, why would you need to call her? The detective asked. Interesting, right? Because he also made a phone call to Crystal and asked her to call him back. So that's it with that. But the bombshells released by attorneys in this case is there was solicitation.
Okay.
Yep. Really, really, really interesting. So with this arrest, we learned more. So court records were unsealed, it says, on Friday with his indictment of a grand jury. And it claims that... So there is an attorney who's saying he doesn't know anything about this. Like, his defense attorney is saying he has no idea at all. But there's some weird... I don't know. I don't understand how this happened. Like, and like, did the police know this off the bat? So it says that Joseph Lawson drove Crystal's vehicle west on the Bluegrass Parkway to mile marker 14 or 16, where he had a flat tire. That's a flat tire. That's the first time we're hearing about what happened with her car and why it was there.
Yeah, that is a big deal. Really big deal.
Yep. So it says, Lavitt, the attorney Lavitt, there's likely, from my knowledge of the case, evidence there was solicitation. He claims someone tried to hire a person to kill Rogers. He said that they are going to make a heavy effort to prove it in court.
I mean, yeah, I think they should prove anyone that's tied to it. You know, regardless of how little or how big, a life was lost here. Now, obviously, presumed lost, okay? We don't have a body, but, like, she's up and gone, and she was a mother that took her job as a mother very seriously and loved her kids and were with them every day. So she didn't just disappear.
But you know what's weird?
So everyone should be convicted that has any part to do with this. Everybody.
What doesn't make sense to me is that Theodore Lavitt, the attorney, is representing Lawson, and he's claiming their solicitation. Like, wouldn't that be your client, though? That was solicited? His son was driving the car. So is he saying somebody was hired, but it wasn't my client? Because he said he knows nothing about her death. He has made this statement over and over and over to the police. In my presence and outside my presence, he would never harm Crystal. He didn't harm her, and he knows nothing of the murder or her disappearance. But then goes on to say these things.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. He said that Joseph drove the car, which is his son, and that he thinks that somebody hired somebody to kill her. But it is my immediate assumption that it is his client and his client's son.
Yeah. Like,
why else are they charged in the case? Like, you know what I mean? I'm so curious what the evidence is against them.
Yeah.
It's so mysterious.
It is mysterious. Unless there's something weird going on here and they're actually an informant and the only way that they felt comfortable coming forward was to stage charges. I don't know. We've seen things like this happen before, so I don't know.
It's really strange.
It is strange, and there's a lot of weird details around this case as well, just because they were involved in law enforcement and they did have some close connections to law enforcement. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it is strange.
And he worked for them. Like, Stephen worked for Hoke.
Yeah.
And he called him that night and then called Crystal. He claims it was about rental properties, but who knows, you know? I wonder if he had any idea he was in the interrogation room when he said, yeah, I was asking you about, you know, this rental property. Which he said he was asking for numbers about a house or something like that.
No.
Really strange. I had a hard time making sense of this in my head, and honestly, it still doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So, I want to know what you guys think. Do you have a theory as to why the attorney of the guy who was just arrested and is supposedly a part of this crime along with Crystal's boyfriend and his son is saying that somebody hired to kill her and that the son did indeed drive the car that night? Doesn't make much sense to me. I feel like you implicated your client a little bit more, but maybe he has evidence we just don't understand yet.
Yep.
So, yeah, let me know what you think.
Yeah. So, interesting one here. This is actually about a true crime content creator. So, Alabama man from S-Town Podcast was shot and killed by police in a standoff.
Who?
an Alabama man from S-Town podcast. The podcast is called S-Town. It featured, it was in connection with a Netflix series that was on Netflix. His name is Tyler Goodson. It says Tyler Goodson garnered local and national recognition after being featured on the S-Town podcast about life in a small Alabama town. Now, what's interesting, right, and I don't ever want to jump to like police corruption, but there were two people involved in a story that had to do with the small town details here, and both of them are now dead. So, it says Tyler was a well-known and loved family man, and in his community, that love extends far beyond due to the S-Town podcast, he said. Please remember at this time that he is so much more than a character to the fans who loved him. This young man was a father, son, brother, and friend to many. S-Town documents life and scandalous rumors in Woodstock from the perspective of a man named John B. McLemore, who reached out to journalist Bryan Reed via email in 2012 using a nickname with an expletive for his town, which he loves and hates at the same time. McLemore, a clock repairman, asked Reed, who was based in New York, to investigate a murder in a small Alabama town, and Reed took him up on the request after about a year of email correspondence. Now, McLemore died by end yourself by drinking cyanide in 2015 while the show was still in production.
Whoa.
Yeah, Goodson was McLemore's friend, McLemore's friend and employee, and referred to McLemore as a father figure. So, really strange. And here's another strange thing, too, is Goodson posted, so what it sounds like to me, and there's not a whole lot of detail in here, but what it sounds like to me is for some reason the cops were called. It doesn't say that Goodson called the cops. It just says that the cops were called and showed up. He was barricaded in his house, and he posted on Twitter saying that the cops are going to shoot me in my own yard. And he was shot.
That's terrible.
It is. It is. Now, I want to be really clear here. So, this article is not suggesting there's anything weird with the police. I'm making those connections that, well, that's weird. These two guys are working on like a small town story and both of them are now gone. Not to mention, he supposedly barricaded himself in his house and then posted on Twitter that he's about to be shot by cops before it happened.
Dude, that's crazy.
It's really strange, right?
That's crazy.
Really strange.
Yeah, like
it doesn't make a lot of sense.
It's a red flag, alert, red flag. you know? That's so weird.
Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. If you guys know, please reach out to me because I would love to know more.
Yeah, for sure.
There's just not a lot here, but it says that the police-involved shooting is being investigated. So I'm hoping we're going to get some more information over the next few days. Maybe next Friday we could do an update to this update and find out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I hope so.
Yeah.
All right. So, we recently got confirmation that the Attorney General decided to move Richard Allen.
To where?
So, they moved him to Wabash Correctional Facility. So it's good. Like, it's good. From what I see here, it says that, they felt like he was in imminent danger and should be moved. And I agree, he should have been moved from the beginning. But to another prison?
No way. It really says that he was in imminent danger?
Yeah, I mean, it's because of the request by the lawyers that essentially they didn't agree with Judge Gohl that...
No, I got you.
That the lawyers were lying about him being in danger, so he forced them to move him away from Westville.
Okay, so another judge looked at it and said that they agree with Richard Allen's...
Attorney General.
Okay, the Attorney General looked at it and said that they agree that the defense attorneys have enough information there to show he could be in imminent danger, right? That's what you're saying?
Basically. I mean, it's not that they're necessarily agreeing. They're just saying that there is a threat or harm is possible, so he should be moved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty much agreeing that there's a threat. I'm just saying that's really interesting because that is the first time we've heard that there's anything here of worth that shows Richard Allen could be in danger. Mm-hmm. That's a huge deal.
It is a big deal.
Like, massive, incredible, huge deal. This is the first time that the justice system in Indiana has said, okay, we're willing to say there might be something going on here.
Yeah, and
That's massive.
I mean, there was already admission of the correctional officers wearing patches. They admitted it. The Westville prison, they admitted it. Everybody admitted that stuff. They just didn't admit to causing him physical harm or mental harm, just that they wore the patches and were odinous or,
Yeah,
heathens.
I hear you, but still, a statement doesn't mean anything. A statement, anybody can say anything in a statement, but it by all accounts, what it seemed like in Indiana is that their justice system and courts and prosecution have been fighting back this idea extremely hard about the possibility of there being any person or persons or group of people that are trying to harm Richard Allen or create this story. So the fact that they said, hey, we're going to give you this, I think is one of the biggest things that I've seen.
Yeah, so I agree with you. It's great. It's great that they did that, but in the same respect...
It's just wild.
They moved him to another prison. He is not convicted. I still have an issue with him being in a prison. I don't feel like that's fair. I don't feel like that's okay.
Yeah.
That is, basically unheard of. You go to a county jail, not a prison.
Yeah.
So, additionally, I started looking up what is Wabash Valley Correctional Facility? What are there any rumors out there about it? What's going on with that place? I know Sleuthy Goosey posted a documentary about it. I didn't have time to watch it, but I did see the first few seconds, and it said it's one of the prisons with some of the worst criminals in the state that houses some of the worst.
He's going to be held by himself regardless.
You're right, but here's what I found that was concerning. And that is when I looked on the IDOC Wabash Valley Correctional Facility Facebook page and looked at their reviews, I found a post from November 16th, 2019 that says, "We want answers, we want justice, justice for Brandon Lewis. Wabash Valley said there was no foul play. Autopsy says otherwise. Who couldn't see obvious stab marks and blood and tell a family member there was no foul play? Answer us, left laying in the cell for 13 hours. Autopsy also says so. They need to answer to us." So, and then I dug a little bit deeper and I found interviews with his mother talking about she was literally en route to visit him that day and got a phone call from another inmate saying there was a problem, and then got another phone call and said he's gone, he's dead. And she said the prison literally did not care about her at all. They didn't care at all. and they wouldn't give her any information, and she had to raise money to get an autopsy. She set up a GoFundMe page to get his autopsy.
Crazy.
It's really, really sad. So, I mean, I can't find hardly anything on it. What I just told you is what I found. I found YouTube, I found the GoFundMe, like a YouTube video and an interview with her on YouTube by like a smaller channel. Well, yeah, it's J Renee is the YouTube channel, is what it's called. Just horrible, horrible if that's truly what happened here. Because I can't find any media articles on it. Like none.
Yeah.
Which is strange. And then I also found on Google that this year they had a death in their facility. And they ended up declaring that it was accidental, but they will not release any information on it at all. Because they were investigating the death.
But does this have anything to do with Richard Allen?
No, I'm just questioning why another prison, why this prison, and the only reason I'm questioning that is because of the amount of suspicious things we've seen in this case and happened to Richard Allen since the beginning. The fact that he was arrested, 2 months later, these officers start working in the prison where he's housed. 2 months later, they get promoted and start wearing those patches and are overseeing him.
Yeah.
Yep. Within 4 months, these officers were hired and overseeing him and wearing those patches. And at that exact time when they start overseeing him is when his mental health starts taking a downward spiral.
Yep.
That is too coincidental for me. And we've looked at the documents and done the math, and it adds up. So hopefully, since it's coming up from a higher up like the Attorney General, hopefully like things are going to be paid attention to more here. It makes me concerned. Like, why didn't he move him to county somewhere?
Yeah.
Why to another prison?
Yeah.
And I want a statement from the people making these decisions of why you are housing him in a prison. Because in my mind, that isn't safer.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, though, is so in a case like this, you're going to be held by yourself.
Yeah.
So does it matter where you're really at? And I was thinking about this last week because
it can.
I said that originally too. But think of Bryan Kohberger, okay? He's not being held in a prison. He's being held in a jail. He's never allowed to come out of his cell. He gets fed food, all this stuff, whatever. He has his own little TV, whatever. Richard Allen, does it matter that he's in a jail cell or does it matter that he's in a prison cell? I don't think it matters either way. My big concern is just with the personnel. I don't care about the location. All prisons are shady. That's a given. We've talked about this many, 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 many times. They're all shady, every single one of them, because they're privately owned. The only way that I would ever feel like there's some worth and trust that can be put into our prison system is if it's federally owned and managed and ran and accountability and has standards and is meeting those standards and checkups and oversight and everything that comes with it. Privately owned prisons are not that way, and they never will be that way because they're about the bottom line and the profit dollar. So my big concern is, have they done thorough background checks around the people that are going to be managing him? Have they done thorough background checks and made sure that these guys are reliable, trustworthy, and have zero connections from any of the other guys that are from that other prison? Because that is the threat, not the location. The location isn't the threat. It's the people who's managing him.
It is the people who's managing him, but I also am concerned because, if somebody looked the other way, a paid guard, which it's a very real thing, okay? Prison politics are a big thing. In a lot of prisons across the country, literally the prisoners run the prison.
Yep.
It just makes me concerned that somebody could look the other way. Now, that is a lot harder to do when it's an active case.
Yep.
But I don't know. I want to know what you guys think about it. Do you think what I pulled up matters at all? I don't know if it does or not. I really don't know. And we don't have many answers in those other cases of people dying in the prison. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it doesn't matter where he's housed. But to me, it's like the principle of it, of putting someone who's not convicted yet in prison. And also with what's already happened.
Yeah, my number one concern is safety.
Yeah,
I
agree
care.
with you.
It's about the safety. So, yeah.
I want him wherever it's safest so that we can get to the bottom of this case.
Yeah.
Have a fair trial.
Absolutely.
Get to the truth. Justice for Abby and Libby.
Yep. Absolutely.
But let me know what you guys think.
Yes, and that is it for the Thought Riot breaking news of the night. What's going on, everybody? So I thought while I was editing, I would jump in here and give you guys the rundown. We recorded our first story this week, and that story is on Elliot Rogers. Not Rogers, Roger. Elliot Roger. That's right. So who Elliot Roger is the king of incels. Okay, there's this movement or community of incel men, which stand for involuntarily celibate. Okay, well, as we got into the story, we got a little bit carried away. It ended up going for over an hour, it just would have took too much time of the podcast up. So what we ended up doing this week is pulling that piece out and going to submit it for our members only. So our Patreon members, our YouTube members. So if you guys are interested in that and you want to check it out, I know most of you are members already. We have a really good member to subscriber ratio, which we love and we appreciate, and we want to do more for you guys. So, this just seemed like a good fit because it's almost the length of a movie. You know what I mean? So, if you're curious about that and you want to listen to it, and you're not a member yet, you can hop on Patreon, you can hop on YouTube, and you can watch that story that way. Elliot Roger is believed to have some sort of connection to the infamous Papa Roger that we talked about last week. Roger is spelled a very specific way. It's not the common way. So we thought it would be interesting. We thought it would be informative to dig into who Elliot Roger is, and if the fact that Papa Roger could be an ode to Elliot Roger, and Elliot Roger is, the king of incels. Maybe that's where the whole incel story began, in the Bryan Kohberger, Idaho 4 case. So if you're interested, come check it out. It'll be on YouTube and it will be on Patreon. And we will see you in the next story.
We have all heard that Bryan Kohberger, and if you haven't, I'll let you know, that he was a criminology student, okay, had just got his master's, was going on his PhD, and I have here from an article that talks about some of his minors, okay, some of his, you have your major and your minors and your degrees.
Okay.
So this says, pursuant to records provided by a member of the interview panel for Pullman Police Department, we learned that Kohberger's past education included undergraduate degrees in psychology and cloud-based forensics. So that's where that comes from, right?
Yep.
Okay, so he has some knowledge of tech, cloud-based forensics.
Yep.
Like that's pretty technical. That takes somebody who can handle that kind of thing, coding, other things, like, because I couldn't do that personally, unless, maybe if I went to school for it, I could. But
It's not just a skill somebody can know, you know, unless you're like one of those computer tech genius dudes that's self-taught, but yeah.
Right. So, Bryan Kohberger is the suspect in the Idaho 4 tragedy, and he has this background in criminology, cloud-based forensics, psychology. Interesting, right?
Yeah.
Well, I came across this video, and it was from last year, and it was by like a news station. It was like a special report type thing. And it was talking about how police officers can get a lot of information about you without a search warrant.
I am not surprised with how much personal information's online.
It's actually kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
It's like, it's kind of terrifying. So, what am I talking about? Police are now starting to buy data from data brokers. And there is this company out there that is called Fog Data Science. Okay. It's a company that... So what people don't understand, okay, what I didn't even understand, is that when I download an app on my phone, when you download an app on your phone and you hit allow location services,
yep,
not only are you agreeing to that company, allowing to know where you are from now on, but you, in a lot of cases, are agreeing for them to be able to sell that data to anybody.
Yep.
Literally anybody. So there are these data brokers who sell it. Anybody, as long as you got money, can buy that data. Now, they're saying it's legal because they don't share names. Like, they don't share private information.
Yeah,
not
just the stats.
Yeah, just that. Well, not just stats. Literally individual, like, accounts. Like, they can see where I go to the grocery store, where I go when I go home, where I go, you know what I mean? Like, they have a full profile on you that is built over years. So they can learn a lot about you, like a lot. Mm-hmm. So there's been tons of police agencies. I think last time it was reported was 18 police agencies across the nation had used this Fog Data Science company, had it's like almost like a subscription service basically that they pay for.
Okay.
And it's really cost effective for them. Very cost effective. And what they can do is they can go to this company, say, okay, let's use the Idaho 4 as an example. They can say, okay, we need to know every phone that has been around that house for the past 6 months. And see if there's any outliers.
Okay. So
they can go to this system and they'll see a bunch of pin dots basically all over a map. And then start using that like, okay, that person always goes to Sigma Chi, so clearly that's a frat member that comes and visits for parties and stuff. Okay, that person's always going here. Okay, that's you know, that's that person or that's that person. But then they could see, oh, there's this one that every like, you know, couple nights a week is coming from Pullman and hanging around outside there for like a really long time. And then going back. And then the one night of the crime, that pin dot stops at the border of Pullman to Moscow or something like that. And then they could see, oh, they live here because they're going back to this apartment. They go here. They're clearly going to the university. Like, they have a full profile on you. And then they can also see, like, connect this guy in this video.
So I get where you're going with this now.
Yeah. This guy in this video, he's like, oh, he used San Francisco, this reporter. He used San Francisco as an example. So he goes into a shop and he buys something and he walks out and he's like, well, see, they have this data mark now, okay? They have my jacket purchase, along with my credit card information, because
Depending
they can
on
see
what apps you have.
They can see that too, and my phone location data, and now bam, they got my name without a search warrant.
That's what I was going to say. Okay. So, essentially, this fog data, and I didn't know about this, so this fog data sidesteps triangulation and the need for a warrant to get people's location if you have signed up for and approved background applications to gather and keep your location.
Yep.
Interesting, because what you're talking about is geolocation.
Yes, it is geolocation. It's background app data, but they don't need a search warrant to access it.
Because you've hit accept. Dude, there has to be something to that.
So there are...
Because you didn't accept to allow police to do it. You accepted to allow the app to do it.
I think there is a... I think it absolutely goes against our Fourth Amendment right of, the seizure laws.
Search and seizures.
Seizure laws.
Yeah.
Our right. I think it absolutely violates that right. And there's a lot of privacy advocacy groups that have done research into this and are saying this violates our rights. So maybe...
It makes sense.
Maybe eventually it will be, outlawed for data brokers to be able to sell to law enforcement like that.
Yeah.
But I don't honestly think enough people know about this for that to happen. If a lot of people knew about this, I think they would have a problem with it. Because not only can law enforcement buy it, but anybody can. Anybody. It is open to the public. If you have money and you want to go to a data broker and buy this data, you can. And FOG purchases billions of data points from 250 million devices and probably a lot more by now.
Jeez.
So they have full profiles on people. Full profiles. It says they can also use the device's ID to trace that device's precise location over months and even years. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, that sounds scary.
Yeah, but my question is did Bryan Kohberger know about this? Did he know about FOG?
Because he's a cloud-based, yeah. Maybe.
Because if you knew about this, you would never take a phone with you. Ever. Never would you take it to stalk a house. Never.
Yeah.
That would be so dumb. Because this isn't cell towers.
Right.
This is GPS.
Well, geolocation.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to be clear, GPS is specific to the satellite data. Geolocation blends like Bluetooth and background app data. So like what I mean by that is, let's say you don't have your GPS on, you don't have your cell service on, but you have Bluetooth on and you're at a party. All the phones that are around there that are realizing there's a Bluetooth connection could essentially confirm that you're there, even though you're not getting GPS location or triangulation, but the other devices are confirming you're within range.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, FOG claims that their product is privacy conscious because it does not contain personally identifying information like your name or your phone number. But that's not so, okay? It doesn't include that information, but police can very easily get that information based off of... Because think about how long you've been using a smartphone. Think about how long you've been allowing it to track your location for the weather app. Or Google Maps.
Yeah.
They have a full... If you allow location data on your phone, and if you've ever allowed it, they absolutely have a profile on you. 100%. And they have sold it to police officers.
Makes sense.
So, The police look at the dot representing you on a map, but may not know your phone number or name. But when they follow the dot to the place where you sleep at night, suddenly they have your address. A decade ago, researchers found that 4 spatiotemporal points were enough to identify 95% of the 1.5 million people whose movements were tracked in a 15-month set of phone mobility data.
Yeah.
They could... 4 spatial points. Only 4 of those data points.
Yep.
They could identify 95% of a pool of 1.5 million people.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. What's the likelihood that another person does the same 4 things that you do in the same way? It's probably really rare. It's probably 1 in 1.5 million or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it is rare, because even if you have a spouse, they're most likely not going to the same job as you. Like, you know, you guys are going to maybe even the grocery store at different times.
Exactly.
You have different friends' houses.
Exactly.
Like, to go to the same place over and over and over, like work, home, grocery store, friend's house, like... that's highly unlikely that anybody else would be doing that exact same thing as you.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm a little bit torn between... Is this positive enough? It's worth the privacy invasion.
No, I think they should have to get a search warrant. They should just have to get a search warrant.
Yeah, I agree.
They need approval from a judge.
I agree, yeah. I don't think it should be something they can just access on their own.
No, it needs checks and balances, okay? We need oversight, not just police able to go into a database and literally spy on the whole nation.
I agree.
And anybody. Like, anybody can do that, not even police officers.
Yep.
That's a scary prospect.
It is.
So, yeah, I'm just super curious if this was used in the Idaho 4 crime at all.
Yeah, I'm curious too. I think this is a good bit of information that I didn't realize they had such easy access to. So there's 18 different agencies that are using this information nationally. And
federal, they're selling it to individuals, federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies.
Yeah. Yep. But when you partner this fog data with a police computer system, they're able to identify who somebody is, who those little dots are, even though they're not giving them to them. And that's interesting.
Yep.
That is interesting.
Yep. It is 18 different agencies. That it says 18. Okay, so the records received by EFF indicate that FOG has past or ongoing contractual relationships with at least 18 local, state, and federal law enforcement clients. Several other agencies took advantage of free trials of FOG's service. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder. But again, I go back to...
And it's near real time, too. Like, they are buying it up, those data sets from data brokers, like, constantly. So it's near real-time location data. So if they find out who you are, they can track you with it actively if your location services are on your phone. Like, in real time, they can track you.
Yeah, that's interesting stuff.
That's terrifying. Really... That's worse. I feel like that's almost worse than the stuff we heard about the NSA.
Yeah,
besides
maybe.
Access to cameras. I mean, I guess that's worse, but...
Yeah, maybe. Location, to me, is not something I'm as concerned with as I am with, like the government being able to access emails, text messages, instant messages, private messages, because there's a big difference where I'm never trying to hide my location. Maybe some people are. So, I have a biased view on this, but I don't really care who sees my location. It doesn't matter to me. If anything, it feels safer when someone knows where my location is. But the thing is with messages, the context matters. So when people are writing messages, if you have somebody writing a message back and forth with somebody and they're angry, they're frustrated, and they're just talking trash, blowing off steam, I don't trust that context to be realized by law enforcement. So I'm more concerned with an invasion of privacy into our messages, private messages and stuff like that, than I am location. Location feels safe to me.
Yeah, my issue is that it's open to the public and that it doesn't have to be an emergency situation with probable cause. It doesn't have to be a warrant where they have to prove probable cause. Like, it's literally just this raw data stream that they can go in and track anyone they want to. And this article, which is EFF.org, talks about how it makes people vulnerable because say you have, like in Mississippi, you remember those police officers that beat those guys? Think about what they could do with that information for people they don't like.
You're talking about the 6
Eddie
police
Parker.
officers that broke into an apartment and
A house, I think.
I thought it was an apartment, but okay, a house.
I don't know.
Whatever, they're living, and it was racially motivated, and they abused these 2 men.
Shot one in the mouth, and he survived, but lost, his tongue.
Yeah. Just a really, really horrible, heinous crime.
It was disgusting. They waterboarded them.
Say that one more time, what you were saying?
It poses questions, like, if you have law enforcement that are corrupt or something, and you have a situation like that, you know what I mean? Where they can track anyone they want.
I agree.
Near real time. Like, it becomes... It just, without any oversight, it can create issues of, like, I don't know, like more of an authoritarian, Orwellian society.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an advocate for more oversight in our justice system, not less. We're moving into a technological era, and in that, there is going to be more technology. And for me, again, I understand this is bias, but for me, my location's not that important. I would rather have my location, because if I ever go missing...
What if you're being harassed by the police, though?
I agree. That's why I'm an advocate for more oversight on the police. Yeah. Because I believe in these systems. I do. I just believe that they could be managed and controlled better, and the way to do that is more oversight. The way to do that is body cams on 100% of the officers, otherwise you can't be out in the street. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These things are really important. I don't feel like an officer should be allowed to give a ticket without wearing a body cam. I don't feel like an officer should be allowed to do an interrogation or interview without body cam. These things hold our officers accountable, which is the best thing for the public. So if we could gain more oversight of our justice system and police officers, I don't see it as being a big problem. But sure, do I understand the concern where you have corrupt cops that could be using it for dirty stuff? For sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And it's just more reason for us to put more energy into these systems.
Yeah. Could this also be a parallel construction part too? Like, could this be part of this too?
Yeah.
In the Kohberger case, because we did a parallel construction video where we talked about how investigators can, hide their original lead that led towards a suspect because it was illegal or it wouldn't hold up in court or look very good. So then they build another lead that is supposed to look like their initial lead and how they got to the suspect. And it's like two different it's like two parallel investigations. So this makes me wonder, like, could this not look good in court? So they won't even bring it up because they didn't need to get a warrant for it. There's no paperwork on it.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think that this could be a tool for phishing.
Yep.
If a crime happens someplace and they want to know all the phones that have been around there for the last 2 months, this could give them that. This could identify and make the list smaller for who they need to follow up with and details like that.
They can do area searches and then they can do specific device searches too.
Yep.
So, I want to know what you guys think about this. I'm just... If Kohberger is the man and knew about this and still took his phone all 12 of those times, like, whoa.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Not a genius.
I agree. I think there's some big question marks there.
Yeah. Yeah, let us know what you think, though.
Yeah. All right, you guys. So the reason I wanted to bring this up is I have a few questions, and we are relating this topic to the Idaho 4 investigation, which, of course, if you know us, is Bryan Kohberger, the criminology student, and we want to dig into the possibility of there being police corruption. Now, it's interesting because, there's a lot of topics out there that get labeled tin hat topics because they don't seem very likely, okay? Here at Thought Riot, though, we don't want that to deter us from covering these topics, digging into it, finding out information, and seeing if this can hold water, seeing if it can hold weight on its own, seeing if it can stand on its own 2 feet. So, do police plant evidence? Is this something that actually happens?
Is it?
Is this something that police do for a specific reason? What is that reason? Mm-hmm. Could it be happening in the Idaho 4? I'm not a person that's willing to jump off the cliff head first into a theory, idea, or opinion if I can't find anything to back that, And even if we have evidence to back this, it doesn't necessarily mean it's happening in this case. Mm-hmm. A few videos ago, we were on a debate, talking back and forth about the possibility of the FBI being corrupt in this case and how I wasn't willing to look at that without evidence and didn't think it's very possible. And, I mean, your opinion was very similar. You're just more likely to believe it based on some of the past evidence, which there isn't a right answer there,
Yeah.
So I went digging. I wanted to know, how easy is it to find details, evidence of police corruption and police doing this? And I got to tell you, I expected to find some. I knew I was going to, but the amount I found was insane. I was not expecting that.
I did. I expect that.
It was an insane amount. Now, I'm definitely going to be honest about everything here. There were a lot of situations where, when I was doing research, it looked like it could have been corruption, but then they were able to prove how it wasn't, type thing. Like, what I mean by that, here's an example. There was an LAPD officer, and they got pulled over, and they took one person out of the car and did a search. They pulled a baggie out of his pants and threw it in the car. The other people in the car were recording this and said, that cop's throwing a bag in here to set us up. But, and there was body cam footage from the other officer that's in the back. One, there was nothing incriminating in that bag. Oh. Yeah. And two, it came out of one of the people in the car's pocket, and the officer was throwing it back in. He said, yeah, I just pulled it out of his pocket. I'm not going to hold it. So not corruption. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's important to look for these things, but there's a lot of valid, real, legitimate corruption.
Well, that's where body cams saved a police officer.
Agreed.
Body cams are good for everybody.
There's this idea that the community that bleeds blue, you know, for the police officers, that it's like an invasion of privacy. And when I hear that, I lose my mind.
When you're on duty, you don't have that right.
Yes, there is no police privacy. They are ours. We own them. They are public servants. They are civil servants. They are here to serve the public. They don't deserve privacy in that regard.
Not on duty.
Not on duty.
Nope.
That job is not theirs. That job is ours, the people, and they've been gifted that job and have a duty to respect that job in the highest regard. So when we see issues here, and a good example is Baltimore. Baltimore is like the most corrupt police force ever. I think over half, or like 60-something% of them have been convicted and are doing over 10 years. Like the amount of corruption in Baltimore was insane. But when you have that kind of corruption, how can you expect the rest of society in the U.S. to trust them? That it's hard not to, you know? And we are going to have a story in this podcast too that is highlighting really great police work, because again, I don't want to seem like I'm ever just attacking somebody, because I'm pro-police. I am all for police, but I also believe there needs to be oversight and accountability around it. So, do police plant evidence? Okay. I have a couple examples here. 2015, North Charleston, South Carolina. Walter Scott was a forklift operator who had a warrant out for his arrest for missing a child support hearing. Okay. Mm-hmm. Michael Slager was a police officer. When Slager stopped Scott for a broken brake light, he found out about the warrant and moved to arrest him. Scott ran, and the two briefly scuffled. When the officer pulled out his taser, hit him, when it didn't knock Scott down or out, and he turned to run, Slager pulled out his gun and shot Scott 8 times while Scott was running away.
Oh, gosh.
Now, the corruption part. I mean, that is corruption right there. You're not supposed to... You're only supposed to engage in gunfire if your life is at risk or somebody in the public's life is at risk. Now, Scott claimed... Or, I'm sorry, Slager. Scott is the one who got shot. So Slager, the police officer, claimed Scott went to go grab his taser and his gun, or both. I think his statement was both. But there was a bystander. That bystander pulled out their phone and recorded the whole thing. So this is interesting here. This cop's statement got him off the hook. Everything was cleared. The shooting was cleared, okay? The bystander that recorded this was terrified of what the police would do to him. So he held on to this for a while, ultimately giving it to the family of the victim, the one who got shot 8 times and died. That family came out and released the footage and proved he was running away. He never tried to grab the taser, never tried to grab his gun, never tried to come at him. He was running away.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, staging evidence, lying on a statement, you know, that's awful. And this was just in 2015. Now in 1975 in Montgomery, Alabama, And this one, again, seemed like another open and shut case. But the police were searching the neighborhood for a suspect in a grocery store robbery, and they zeroed in on Bernard Whitehurst Jr. When they confronted him, Whitehurst reportedly pulled out a gun and aimed it at the officers. They returned fire, killing him with a single bullet to the chest. The shooting was quickly deemed justified when a gun was found at the scene. There was no autopsy, and Whitehurst was quickly buried. It seemed like an open and shut case, just like any other police shooting. It wasn't, though, and 6 months later, the entire case started to unravel. The Montgomery Advisory was one of the only newspapers to cover this case extensively and alleges that the gun was planted, and many locals were starting to question the events. The police alleged that the paper was making up stories, and the publisher even agreed to take a polygraph test. The publisher of this paper agreed to take a polygraph test. 3 Montgomery officers were asked to polygraph, okay? You know what those 3 officers did? They quit.
Oh, gosh.
They quit. There was no gun at the scene. They shot this man in cold blood and then put a gun there. Yeah. And he wasn't even the suspect in that robbery.
Self-preservation.
He wasn't even the suspect in that robbery. So this is applicable to a lot of crimes out there. How did they zero in on him?
Right.
What caused the police officers to make the assumption that it was him?
It's important.
And what causes police officers today to make that assumption that it is this suspect and not that one?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So July 2019, another pretty recent one, right? Deputy Zach Wester in Florida. Have you heard about this?
Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Deputy Zach Wester in Florida. A traffic stop with him would quickly turn to horror. Okay. So what he was doing is he would pull people over, question them, get them out of the car, and then make up a reason to search the car. He would quickly find drugs, usually always meth, and make an arrest. The people would go into the system. Many saw jail time or lost jobs, lost custody of their children.
Yeah.
Over several years, Westers seemed to have an uncanny ability to stop cars whose drivers were carrying small amounts of dope. This was an asset for a policeman, and anyone who watched him work was sure he was headed for a promotion. However, every single one was a lie. Over 100 times, this police officer did this. 100 times.
Why?
And we're talking...
For a promotion?
I don't know. But
like, why meth every time?
We're talking people... I don't know that either. We're talking people who lived normal lives, were upstanding citizens in their communities, had normal jobs like doctors, lawyers, average people, getting targeted and pulled over by this police officer in 2019 in Florida and having dope planted on them. Yes.
That's disgusting.
Lost kids.
That's crazy,
lost
dude.
all kinds of things because of this.
That is a huge impact from one police officer.
Massive. So he ended up getting over 20 years, okay? 8 people were released from prison. Over 100 cases were thrown out. Over another 200 were looked into. And this goes to why. What is the point? You are a hindrance on society. You are costing the taxpayers money. You're costing the justice system money. You're costing it time. You're costing it resources. You're not helping.
You're making people not trust police officers.
Yes, and you're not even making a safer place to live.
You're destroying people's lives. You're taking kids away from parents and traumatizing them.
Think about people who have never done crime before in their life get pulled over by this guy and
get meth
have this happen, lose their kids, go to jail or get charged or whatever. And because of that, they lose their job. They turn to a life of crime. Like, I don't think that's that far-fetched to make the assumption.
And then you create a generational issue, too.
Agreed. So you're making it overall less safe.
Yep.
So in Waukegan, Illinois, in August 1992, a woman called the police and reported that her home had been broken into and her children's 11-year-old babysitter, Holly Slacker, was missing. When police arrived, they found the girl's body in the house, stabbed to death. Evidence of SA was found, samples were taken, and a massive manhunt began. A prison informant fingered a fellow inmate. Interesting. Prison informant fingered a fellow inmate. Samples were taken, Puerto Rican-born Juan Rivera. Rivera cooperated from the beginning after he was fingered, was pointed out as being the suspect, and gave samples of his blood and DNA. While no physical evidence was found on site linking him to the crime, Rivera was held in custody where his mental condition began to deteriorate. Sound familiar? Mm-hmm. His long nightmare was only beginning, too. Rivera was interrogated until he confessed. Interrogated until he confessed. He was quickly charged with first-degree murder and convicted despite evidence from his electronic ankle monitor showing that he never left home the night of the murder.
Gosh.
While his first conviction was overturned, his fate was sealed at his second trial by testimony of the child being babysat, who was 2 at the time. They came at him again.
These are so tragic.
So, he got this thrown out. The prosecution tried to convict him a third time.
What?
Yep. That eventually got thrown out. So this was over a 13-year period. Okay? He was incarcerated over a 13-year period, nonstop appeals. And the court system had to come out and make a special ruling saying they were not allowed to pursue prosecution again. Right. So to me, this feels like other areas of our justice system tainted. Why was the prosecution...
Yeah, the prosecutor was
fighting this
corrupt,
so hard.
Yeah.
It feels like it, right? 2010 to 2018.
Wow.
Right. The next case is... so Sergeant Wayne Jenkins was a prominent officer in Baltimore. Okay, this is what I was talking about. In Baltimore Police Department, head of the Gun Trace Task Force. So when one of his suspects wound up dead, run over by Jenkins' car while being arrested, most officers gave him the benefit of the doubt. He claimed that the suspect had pointed a gun at the car, so he ran over his head. The suspect pointed a gun at the car, so he ran over his head. Yep. So it says this gun turned out to be a BB gun, and that gave him the authority to take out the suspect by any means necessary. But all this started falling apart when Jenkins was arrested and convicted for a host of crimes committed using his position of power, including robberies, dealing drugs, setting up crime scenes, and 8 others were also included in this.
8 other police officers?
8 other police officers were also included in this. And not only did that guy who got ran over only have a BB gun, he didn't have a gun. Nothing.
Oh my gosh.
It was a setup. Complete and total setup. This officer murdered this man.
That's insane.
Last one, then we'll get into some questions. So 1990s, this was essentially almost a whole department, okay? So New York State Trooper David L. Harding was an ambitious man, and he was looking to move up from the NYPD to the CIA. When he was asked in an interview if he was willing to break the law for his country, he didn't wait. He answered yes and proudly announced to the CIA that he had fabricated evidence to convict people he knew was guilty. as an officer. The CIA wasn't happy with this answer. They notified the Justice Department, and an investigation began. And what they found was shocking. In central New York, a massive conspiracy of fraudulent convictions and falsified evidence had begun taking place for years. It had ruined people's lives. There were at least 2 false murder convictions. Another man shot and booked falsely. The police were lifting fingerprints from surfaces in the precinct to convict.
What?
So what they would do is they would bring a suspect into the police,
Yep.
have him touch something, they would lift the fingerprints from there and then submit it as evidence like they took it from the crime scene.
Right. That is so messed up.
Yeah. It led to, again, another 8 being charged and convicted in this system.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, there's another video out there, too, of Baltimore. Baltimore, there were a ton of videos on there. And have you seen the one with the Coke can where, and this is really smart, you guys, like, my hat's off for the police officers that do this, okay? Because, again, oversight is so important. But when a cop starts their body cam, and there's certain cities that have a rule whenever you're working with a potential suspect or a situation going on, you turn your body cam on. Well, like at the LAPD in Baltimore, when you hit record, it actually saves the previous 30 seconds from before when you hit the button. Because it's a camera, it's always recording, okay?
Yeah.
So it saves the 30 seconds before the button is pushed. In LA, it's 2 minutes before the button's pushed. But he pushes his button, okay? Or he walks up, and there's this lot, finds a Campbell's can, puts dope in it, crack cocaine in it, and sets it down, walks back out to the street, turns on his body cam, and you can hear him saying to the guys, "Oh, I do this all the time. It's no big deal." Turns on his body cam. Well, 30 seconds was enough time to catch him walking up, putting the dope in the Campbell's can, and then walking back out. So then he walks up, checks 2 or 3 different things, and then grabs this Campbell's can. He's like, "Oh, boys, look what I got here." All on camera.
Oh my gosh, what a dummy.
Yeah. You know
I'm glad he got caught, though.
I agree.
Gross, man.
And I think that cameras should be on at all times, and there needs to be rules and regulations about that. I think that cops should be allowed to mute it. So here's an idea. Let's say cameras are on all the time, okay? And they're always audio recording and video recording. Let's say you're having a fight with your wife. Right? That's not something you want recorded as a police officer. You're allowed to answer your phone when you're sitting on the side of the road, whatever.
Yeah.
So you hit the mute button, right? You have to mute it, not turn it on. Then you can do whatever you need to do with your wife and not be recorded, not be listened to. But as soon as you're done, you know, it turns back on. Or let's say it automatically starts recording audio again after 5 minutes or something like that. And then when they pull that footage, you need to write down, like, "Hey, I muted it at this time for this reason."
Oh, okay,
Phone call with my wife.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there's some real possibilities around something like that.
Yeah, I think there's ways to do it without it being overly invasive. It's just, the thing is like, when you're a cop, like, and you're on duty serving the public, protecting the public, I think that you just don't have those rights to privacy.
I could not agree more.
I just don't think you do. Now, a conversation with your wife and it's private, maybe the police officer could call in and say, "Hey, I'm parked, here. I need to, can you just, set up approval for me to turn my body cam off for 5 minutes so I can call my wife? We need to have a conversation." You know what I mean? Like, and the thing is if there's a Freedom of Information Act request to get that body cam, they can redact those parts.
They can.
Before sending it out.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. I think there needs to be more oversight, not less.
Agreed.
I don't believe in police privacy. I do not believe in that. Not
Me
as long
either.
as you're clocked in, not as long as you have a badge on your hip or you're around your neck. I do not believe you should be allowed to have privacy. You are there to do a job, and you're there to uphold the laws that we've voted in or have voted our politicians to vote in, or whatever, right? But you're there as a public servant. You're there to serve the people and the public, and we own that position. And, it's really a shame when cops abuse this right, because police officers have a lot of power. They are given a lot of power. That badge has a lot of weight. We have covered so many different things here when going down the rabbit hole of the Idaho 4 and looking at every piece of evidence. What they're allowed to do around private information, what they're allowed to gain, the warrants they're allowed to get, sitting outside people's houses, which would be considered stalking. Like, that's a lot of power.
You're right.
And to have somebody disrespect that power and badge and public service is disgusting, despicable. It should be hated more than it is right now.
Absolutely.
Think of Dr. Moore.
Yeah, dude, exactly. The Dr. Moore case, that is a big deal for me in the Idaho 4 case, and I don't know why it's not a bigger deal for other people. Knowing there are Idaho state police officers involved in this investigation who literally straight up, without a doubt, framed a man.
Yep.
They framed him. He was a chiropractor. He was a family man. He was a citizen of that area, like a good citizen. Like a good Samaritan, I guess you could say. Like, he was just an older,
he was just trying to live his
good
life,
person,
dude.
living his life, with his family.
Yes, and he even had,
and they framed him for no reason.
Right. He even had, what a lot of people would consider protections around him. His best friend was the voted in coroner or whatever, which is a public service position.
Elected
position. I'm sorry, you're right. And the police went to him and threatened him not to give a statement. And these are the police that are involved in the Idaho 4. So, look, I want to make a connection and statement here. For people that are watching this that believe Bryan Kohberger is guilty and is on that guilty train, I do not think it's fair when people question the validity of this investigation and or case and or officers, for people that believe he's guilty, to attack those people and put them down. Because when I went looking here, and I don't have an opinion, we've said this a million times, I am not fighting for Bryan Kohberger to be guilty. I don't care. I care about the investigation, which will fix whether we find out if Kohberger is guilty or not. That's just not step one. Kohberger is the last step, which we will know if we can validate and verify the investigation is done right and then prove his innocence or guilt, right? Mm-hmm. It's not that I don't care about him as a person. It's just not the most important step right now. Looking into the investigation is.
It's not like we want him to be, you know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Another victim.
Exactly. So
I don't want that. I absolutely don't want that.
I don't want that either.
Him to have been the guy. I hope he is the guy, and I hope that they can prove that he's the guy and that they didn't do anything. Because if they can find corruption in this, that they planted something or lied about something, you could get the whole case dismissed, and then you have a quadruple murderer on the streets. Yeah, and yes, that's what I was going to also, is that I don't think it's fair to put people down or call people out or devalue their opinion. If you think he's guilty and you're talking or communicating with someone that believes he's innocent and believes there is police corruption, or believes that they staged the sheath, or believes that they had DNA from some other contact or interaction with the law enforcement and they made it look like it was on the sheath. Like, these are all very real questions and concerns about people who believe he's innocent or believe there's something funky here, okay? And those are real questions that have real valid possibilities
based on the information that we just pulled here. And I'm not willing to jump on that, but that doesn't make somebody else's concerns more or less valid.
Yeah.
It needs to be talked about.
Yeah,
we can't pretend these things don't happen. We can't say, hey, police deserve us to always blind faith trust them. No way, dude. No way. I do give police...
They need to verify.
Agreed. And I do give police my trust and faith until I see a crack. And then I don't trust nothing, and I will go out of my way to go look to see if there's more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. As a woman, I wouldn't necessarily trust a police officer. Like, say you get pulled over and you're on like a dark road in an isolated area and you get pulled over by a cop. I ain't trusting them. No,
I would. If you're a woman, I would call in and say, hey, can you verify you have an officer here at this road, and can you verify this is an officer behind me?
Exactly.
And they'll literally call the officer on the radio and tell him not to get out of the car until they can verify.
Yep.
So, and you actually, if you're being lit up at night, you can not pull over. A cop, just stay at the right speed limit and call in while driving so that you're not pulled over and at risk, and verify it's a cop behind you before you even pull over at all.
Yeah.
And you're allowed to do that. They are not allowed to charge you with that. So, for not pulling over until you verified, as long as it's within reason, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So, while I was doing investigations,
that's a good suggestion, though.
Yeah, while I was doing investigations into these topics and into these details, trying to understand people's beliefs out there that believe for sure the cops are dirty in this situation, I came across a video, and it's a video of defense attorneys and prosecutors talking about when they know evidence is dirty, when they can tell evidence is guilty. Okay. And it's really interesting stuff.
That is interesting.
And I might post it here.
Let's take a listen here to Dean Strang, who's one of the defense attorneys in Making a Murderer.
I didn't see them plant evidence with my own two eyes. I didn't see it. But do I understand how human beings might be tempted to plant evidence? After Stephen's exoneration, of the lawsuit, of the Avery Commission, of the governor hugging Stephen and holding him up as an example of the criminal justice system gone wrong, do I have any difficulty understanding what human emotions might have driven police officers to want to augment or confirm their beliefs that he must have killed Teresa Halbach? I don't have any difficulty understanding those human emotions at all.
But they talk about in there, and I was thrilled to hear this, because they say it can be so uncomfortable when you're a prosecutor and you can tell that evidence is staged and something's not right here. And you don't, as the prosecutor, you don't have evidence proving it was staged, but based on your experience, you can tell it's staged. It puts you in a really uncomfortable situation.
I bet.
And that is what we're talking about when we bring up the questions and concerns that, does Bill Thompson even know?
Yep. Plausible deniability.
Exactly.
Yep.
And wondering if something's fishy here is not the same as having proof that something is fishy here.
Yeah. If that's the case, I expect that's a problem that I have, is that prosecutors aren't really supposed to have this buddy-buddy relationship with police. They're not supposed to. They're supposed to be working for the people and get to justice for victims. And, like, it's not supposed to be the way that it seems to be currently. I think a prosecutor, if they can see that it looks like some evidence might be planted, they should be able to launch an investigation if they have that ability, and I think they should be able to have that ability, which I think they do. They just don't do it because they're buddy-buddy with cops.
I agree with you. And that's another argument into the difference between staying objective or subjective, because when you get personal relationships, it's impossible. It's not hard. It's literally impossible to stay objective when you have a personal relationship built into the work around your officers with a district attorney, whatever, the working relationship and the work product.
Yeah.
It throws objectivity out the window.
Like, instead of doing an investigation because there's red flags here and it really looks like something was planted and, having some kind of third-party investigation, instead, you could go to the police officers and be like, hey, this isn't looking too good. You need to fix this.
Yeah.
For them to, better set it up.
Yeah, I know.
One
crazy.
instance that comes to my mind is Delphi with the leaks and the fact that the prosecutor, along with the law enforcement, are investigating this and are trying, it's all convoluted. But
yeah.
I mean, that bothers me, that these investigators that have Richard Allen pinned as the guy are also investigating this, and that the prosecutor is investigating the defense team.
Yep.
That's not okay to me.
I agree with you. I don't think it's okay either. It is too much overlap. And again, that creates a situation where you can't be objective. So, we're just going to shoot it 100% straight here with the Dr. Moore stuff in the Idaho 4 case. And, the Dr. Moore has two very important officers in it that were key players in setting up Dr. Moore. And what they did to set him up was alter and manipulate timestamps on videos to make it look like he was at the scene of the crime when he wasn't. They also ignored his rights when he asked for an attorney and a lawyer present.
8 times.
More than that. That's 8 very clear times, but there's more even after that. But yes, you're right, 100%. And they lied to him and were making deals that police aren't allowed to make, that only the prosecutor's allowed to make, where they were like, hey, if you just admit that you did this, even though Dr. Moore didn't, if you just admit you did this, we'll make sure that you're not going to get the death penalty. You'll just get murder too, but you'll have your life. And they put him in distress so long until this normal stand-up everyday citizen couldn't handle it and admitted to guilt, when he wasn't guilty. Obviously, he had an eyewitness alibi, which was the coroner during that time. And there was also eyewitnesses of the shooter that didn't even match his skin color, hair color, height, weight, nothing.
Yeah, and the truck wasn't his. It was straight up fabricated.
And these cops ignored that. And these cops were key players in the Idaho 4 investigation.
Yeah.
So I understand. I'm not saying this is what I believe, but I understand when people are bringing up the question around the validity of this investigation, when they're bringing up the questions and insecurities around the officers involved in this investigation, the possibility of the sheath being staged or DNA being planted or stretching of the triangulation or any of these things. I get it. I also believe it's possible Bryan Kohberger is guilty. And I hope he is guilty. And I hope that there's no police misconduct here. Because if he's guilty and there's misconduct, then he gets out and we have a killer on the streets. If he's innocent and there's misconduct, then the killer's already out on the streets. There's no winning.
Right.
There is none.
There isn't. There isn't. Mm.
And a really crappy part of being the good guys is sometimes being the good guys causes you to not get your suspect.
It causes you to lose, yeah.
You're going to lose sometimes. But the people will trust you.
Right.
The people will stand with you as police officers.
And if you make it okay in one situation, you're making it okay in others. And in those other situations, you might be framing an innocent man.
Yeah. But I'm really curious what you guys think. This was really eye-opening for me. I didn't expect to find this much evidence this easily, an overabundance of evidence where I had to make sure all of it was only from the U.S. and from a certain time frame and from different areas. I mean, it was an endless amount of evidence. Good, solid video evidence. So I get it. I understand it. I'm not willing to go there in the Idaho 4 case until I see definitive evidence, but I understand the connections, and I'm totally willing to accept this could have happened.
Yeah. You mean with the local police department?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
But
agree with you.
let me know what you guys think. Yeah.
Yeah. We are digging into the murder of Greg Ferenczi, who was a detective with the Terre Haute Police Department and also a federal agent that worked with the FBI on a task force. So he was described as an incredible man, incredible investigator. He seemed to support, like within his job, the police department did a lot of things, you know, like everybody spoke so highly of him. He was, you know, he left behind twin, you know, children and, you know, a family. And it's really, really sad what happened. But his murder happened on July 7th, 2021. He was 53 at the time, and he was at the federal building, the FBI office in Terre Haute, in Indiana, which was on 1st Street at the time. So he had been with the FBI for like 11 years or something like that, and 30 years as a detective, or working at the Terre Haute Police Department, not as a detective. But, so he, I don't know which happens first, so I have the report here, but it sounds like a Molotov cocktail was thrown first. So,
Okay.
and then Ferenczi walks out of the building, and when he walks out of the building, Shane Meehan shoots him.
Oh, jeez.
And then Ferenczi shoots back, but dies of his injuries, but he hit Shane. So then another agent comes running out of the building as backup, and Shane hops in his gold F-150 pickup truck and drives himself to the hospital and escapes, but then is arrested at the hospital. He had to undergo surgery for his wounds and stuff. So, yeah, that's how Ferenczi died. Now, who is Shane Meehan, and why did he do this? Because after police officers arrested him and then searched his truck, they found ammunition, they found more Molotov cocktails. Like, he was going there to kill people. And so this is still ongoing. The trial is pushed out till 2024. So we don't have all of the information yet. Hopefully we find out in the trial. Hopefully it's televised, though with Indiana, I don't know. They just recently allowed cameras in their courtrooms, but I don't know how much they're going to make use of that. Shane Meehan was 44, and he ran for mayor in 2019. Yeah.
Okay.
Weird, right?
Yeah.
Really strange.
Very.
This guy ran for mayor and then goes on to murder
So he has
a
that
police
kind
officer?
of connection to people in the area where he feels confident enough that he could run for mayor?
I guess so.
That's strange.
Really strange. Yeah, he ran for mayor. He said he retired from... So apparently he worked at a federal penitentiary for a while and retired from there. And he worked for the Postal Service at one point, too. So that's like his job history. Now, his lawyers have argued in court that he suffers from mental health conditions. Okay, so it says he's been diagnosed by doctors with several health conditions, including post-concussion syndrome, a traumatic brain injury, a seizure disorder, Parkinson's disease, and chronic pain syndrome.
Okay.
What? That's like a lot of things.
Yeah, and it reminds me of like, oh shoot, I'm in trouble, Judge Goal. You know?
Yeah. Really, really strange. So he was placed on permanent medical leave from his position at the federal prison complex. Okay, so he didn't retire. That was inaccurate. I actually didn't realize that it said this. Due to his... Because that was a...
Federal prison complex? He worked at the prison?
He worked at a prison.
I missed that. I thought you said postal service or something.
He did work for a postal service too. That was his job history.
I must have started thinking ADHD mind.
So I have different media sources here that are from back when it happened and now later on, because this is still going through the court system.
Sure.
And I'm sure the reason why is because of his condition and his lawyers trying to get him assessed and making sure he's competent for court. That's probably what's been going on this whole time.
Okay.
But yeah, it says here his lawyers said that he was placed on permanent medical leave from his position at the federal prison complex in Terre Haute due to his medical history and that he had previously been hospitalized related to self-deletion ideations.
All right.
Yeah. It's really... So, apparently when he ran for mayor, he only won 1% of the votes, though.
Okay.
And what's funny is, like, a big argument for his campaign was, like, public safety.
Yeah, public safety from Molotov cocktails.
Like, you literally just shot up some federal agents, bro.
Jeez.
Yeah. So, now this has been talked about a lot in comments I've seen because Ferenczi is in the Franks memorandum in the Delphi case, in the Richard Allen Delphi case. Now, what role did Ferenczi play in that? If you guys are unaware, he played a very big role. A very big role in the investigation. So I have all of the excerpts pulled up of where Ferenczi's name is mentioned in the memorandum. I won't go through every single one of them because this memorandum is like, they have an introduction part where they give a general, like, synopsis of everything in the document and then they really go into it, and it's a lot. His name is mentioned a lot in here. But so Click, Murphy, and Ferenczi were the 3 law enforcement officers who worked on this case and specifically focused on the Odenite angle.
Really?
They are the ones who wrote the Odenite report.
Interesting.
They are the ones who got the statement from Elvis Fields, who said he spit on the bodies. And so it's an 85-page detailed report. And Officer Click is the one who was concerned, because he worked with Ferenczi and Murphy on this and wrote this Odinist report. He is the one that was concerned when he saw the charges against Richard Allen and read the PCA and started contacting Tony Liggett saying, I'm concerned with, like, the evidence against him. Like, and forwarded him all the Odinist report.
Really? Gosh.
Yep.
And do you know what date that was?
The date that McLeland was given that?
Yeah.
It probably says in here.
Okay, we can look at it later because that's not important to the story. It's just important how it took for this topic to get brought up, them to be in court in the way that they were. And look what happened. It almost got, it did get both of his defense attorneys thrown out.
Yep. This report got both of Richard Allen's defense attorneys thrown out of the case, basically. Yep. And if you don't consider it thrown out, they were threatened. Yep. Like, that's pretty much thrown out.
I agree.
Essentially, This letter was stamped May 1st, 2023. Yeah. So basically what the defense alleges in the memorandum is that this was exculpatory evidence and McClelland sat on it. He just ignored it.
Yeah.
And the defense wasn't given it until September. I'm pretty sure is what it's saying here. Some of this exculpatory evidence in the form of videos was finally released to the defense September 8th, 2023, over 9 months after the defense counsel entered their appearance.
That is crazy.
It's absolutely
I'm curious
crazy.
why it took that long, or what the reason is that we're going to hear that it took that long, because that's just unacceptable.
So it says by this time, the defense had literally taken several depositions, like several, to try to investigate this and they were deposing officers like Holman, Liggett, and Lesenby to figure out what was going on, and then they finally got this. They got the Odinist report. But, I mean, so here, I wanted to find law enforcement officer Greg Ferenczi and sent Tony Liggett a video of a pagan ritual videotaped by Brad Holder in which someone that looks like Patrick Westphal is marking a tree with his hands or fingers. And isn't that funny that in Patrick Westphal's interview on Sleuth Intuition, he literally talks about putting runes on trees?
Yeah. I mean, it is strange.
Or no, wait. He said he did it. No, he tried to deny that, actually. No, and he said that he cut slices off branches to make little flat surfaces for the kids to write runes on. But then we found evidence that he actually did do markings on trees.
Yeah.
Yeah. His name is all through this document, investigating all of them. All of the men that the defense alleges are connected to this.
So, do we feel like it's going to eventually be brought up that there was a connection?
I don't know, because it's interesting.
Targeted because of this.
It's interesting because I know that when I was looking into this, there was a lot of talk about how the FBI and the local police were on two different pages the whole time. That they were, it was like two different investigations, because local police officers ruled out the Odinist angle pretty quickly, and they cited that Purdue professor, that they then later couldn't find, apparently, who actually didn't...
Came out later and said that there was a connection.
He did see a connection, not what they were saying.
Yeah.
So I know that I keep hearing people talking about this case, and they want to focus on just what's going on with Gull and the court system and how it's messed up. And they're like, just leave out the Odinist angle and just look at what's happening. This is horrible. And I understand that point of view. But then when you put the Odinist angle back in, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
You're like, whoa.
Yeah. I don't know if I agree with that point of view. I think that everything's important in a case.
The fact
Every single thing.
They're lying about a professor and saying they can't find him and saying that he ruled it out, but then actually you find out he didn't and said there is a connection. The fact that you have 3 agents that still, despite everyone else saying, no, that's not it, going out of their way to get to the bottom of the truth and investigate this angle, to see it through, to go where the evidence leads.
Yeah.
Because that's what Ferenczi, Click, and Murphy did.
Yeah.
Despite everyone, the local police officers saying, no, this isn't it, we're ruling this out, they still relentlessly investigated this angle and took it where it led. and wrote
Yeah.
the Otis report.
Yeah. And that's one important thing that we talk about all the time is you got to go where the evidence leads. And look, a topic might feel really lame. It might feel super
Impossible.
tin hat
Yeah.
and like it is way out in outer space, but you have to remember, if it's important to the suspect or the criminal involved, then it's important to the case. Always. 100% of the time.
If this Nordic religion is important to the suspects, then it's important to the case, no matter how dumb or out there it seems.
Yeah.
Think like Zodiac Killer.
Yeah.
His ideas were so dumb.
Yeah.
It's all creepy and stuff because we never caught him, but if they caught him, guarantee you, he would just be a psychopath.
I agree.
Who is literally so out there you can't make sense of what his whole mission was. He's just crazy.
Yep. Yep.
So I tried searching articles from this time period about the Delphi case and Ferenczi's death to see what was going on during that time. Was anything important going on? I mean, no, not really. It didn't seem like it. The only way I'm going to be able to link the two is if I can find a date somewhere in this memorandum, which I have not found yet, that shows around his death in 2021 they were investigating some kind of lead. And so far, I it doesn't seem that way. Most of their investigations that I've seen so far, they say 2018, 2017. I don't see anything from 2021. So, I mean...
Yeah. That is strange.
And I also don't see any connection with this Shane guy. Shane Meehan.
You know what I'm wondering? I'm sitting here thinking of reasons why you could go from wanting to run for mayor to focusing on public safety to then doing something of this nature. The obvious one is mental health, right? But the other one that I'm sitting here wondering is, did this person have a chronic illness and they were on a time limit?
He's still alive.
Yeah.
Okay. They were on a time limit?
Yeah, life. Like, do they have a chronic illness that is putting a clock on the rest of their life?
Why would that make him do this?
Because if you're talking about a group of people, large or small, and you know one of those group members has a time clock left on their life, so you need to have someone be gone, disappear, something to happen to them, that's the obvious person to do it.
Oh. Yeah, I guess you're right.
So they said he had all these illnesses, okay.
Yeah, they did.
Is there more to it?
Maybe. I mean, he didn't seem like very popular in his little race for mayor.
Yeah.
So.
This just seems like a lot of coincidences, though.
It does.
But Delphi is all coincidences.
You're right. It is a case full of coincidences. Like that Brad Holder's son was dating Abby.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like he claimed to his ex-wife that Patrick Westphal killed Abby and Libby, and that if she didn't stop asking questions, she was going to turn up dead too.
Yes.
And connected it to the Flora fires and said that it was to cover those up.
Yes. Interesting.
And like Elvis Fields saying that he spit on the bodies and that he confessed to 2 different sisters that he was there. And like Patrick Westphal lives 7 minutes down the road from Manon High Bridge.
Yeah, I need...
And there was a ritual in the woods that made them stop being friends.
One thing that I really need to do is get all the documents now that they've been posted and the public has access to them. I need to read through all of them. Every single one that's tied to the case.
Good luck.
Yeah, I know.
Have fun
But that's
with
the
that.
only way to try and figure this out.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
That's a lot. But yeah, so, I mean, have you seen, this is Shane Meehan.
Mm-hmm.
So his new pretrial date, because they've just been extending this over and over, is February 14th, 2024. And then his trial date is set for March 4th, 2024. So they're preparing for a competency. I don't know why.
Competency.
I just said this word earlier. All of a sudden, I can't say it. A hearing, and yeah, they're really just looking at his ability to stand trial, where he's at in his head, and we're waiting. I am so curious about this, how this is going to turn out in trial. I haven't found anywhere a motive. It's also interesting. There's an element of arson here.
Yeah. I know.
What is up with the fires in Indiana?
I don't know.
It's really strange.
Yeah.
We just found out that
McClellan's some tie to ritual?
McClellan's father was an arsonist.
Yep. It makes me feel like there could be some kind of tie to a ritual.
Well, arson is also a thing, like Molotov cocktails that they did to... racists did.
Yeah.
That's something they did. Was arson.
Yeah.
So, is it that kind of thing? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I want to know what you guys think about this information. I'm glad that commenters brought it up so that I could look into it. And this isn't the only officer death in the area, so maybe I'll cover that in the future. Because there's another one that has odd circumstances. But
yeah.
Let me know what you think. If you have any further information on this, definitely let me know and leave it in the comments. Because I would really like to know if there was ever anywhere on the internet a motive stated for Shane Meehan, or if anybody knows if he has a connection to the Delphi case in any kind of way, or the people mentioned in the memorandum who are the alleged Odinists connected to this crime.
Yep.
I want real justice for Abby and Libby. Not...
Yes.
You know, like, this is... It's just
in
making
any situation.
This is making a mockery out of the whole situation, and it literally makes people forget about the girls and what it's about. It's a circus at this point, and it's not because of the media.
Yeah.
It's not because of cameras in the courtroom. It's because of the court.
Yeah.
It's because of the investigators. Like, there's problems here, but let me know what you think. I rest my case.
All right, now this is an interesting one, you guys. So, I told you earlier that I was posting a poll, okay? So let's just start with that. The poll here: do you believe the Idaho 4 Bryan Kohberger case and crime can be completed in the current time frame suggested? 10 to 12 minutes, case study related. Now, interesting. We have 20% of our viewers. This is only 54 votes. I want to be clear about that. Normally we get hundreds and hundreds of response. This is 54 votes, but we have 20% saying yes, 61% saying no, 6% saying other, 7% saying maybe, and 6% saying, is it Friday today? But, okay, so I think it's fair to say at least the people that have voted so far, the mass majority believe that it's a no, right? Well, just recently, 4 days ago, we have a quadruple homicide by knife.
It happened 4 days ago?
4 days ago.
Where?
Yeah. So, quadruple homicide by knife in the Bronx. So, this is in New York. So, we have at Beach and 22nd Street in Far Rockaway, the Bronx, okay? A Courtney Gordon was living on his family's couch. And he had recently gone through a separation with his wife. I don't know if that was the cause and maybe he wasn't handling it well. I'm not too sure. But one of the important factors here is that multiple family members stated that there was some mental instability going on here with him. He was scary. People were afraid of him. They were afraid to ask him to do things. They were afraid to kick him out. They were afraid to all these things, okay? He got very aggressive very quick, making threats, raising his voice, and scaring people. So 6 months ago, he lived with an aunt. I believe it's a sister to his mom, and similar things were happening. She kicked him out, said, I can't handle this anymore. So he bounced around from homeless shelters, back and forth, you know. And then another family member let him come stay. This family member had kids there and stuff like that, and he was living on the couch. Now, some weird details, and I haven't really hashed these out yet, but I wanted to share this story with you guys, I think he put cameras up in their house on the inside. Yeah. But the other possibility is the family was so scared of him, they put cameras up. I haven't yet confirmed which of the two it is. It's one of the two. Both are equally bad here. But either they put cameras up because they were scared of him. At that point, I would have just kicked him out personally, but you know.
Yeah.
Or he put them up. There's clearly some paranoia going on here.
Yeah, clearly.
They all locked their doors at night, or when they were in their rooms, they locked their doors. Like, this is how scared they were of this guy. So, this guy, Courtney Gordon, 38 years old, ends up horribly ending 4 family members and wounding 2 officers. So this is the situation that occurred 4 days ago. They receive a 911 call.
Okay.
And that 911 call says, we need help. He's killing my family members. Mm-hmm. All right. This person was later identified as a 16-year-old family member. She called 911 and jumped out the window, a 16-year-old cousin.
Oh, my gosh.
Yep, the teen jumped out the window at home, according to sources, and it was unclear if she sustained any injuries during the massacre. So I couldn't find any details out whether she got any injuries or anything like that. But so the cops are called, right? Well, the cops show up there. And they get out of their car, they go to approach the house, they have the address and everything, and a man's calmly walking out. The cops ask him, in a nice way, in like a trauma response type of way, hey, you know, we received this call, can you tell us what's going on? And he says, no. They ask him what his name is, and he mumbles something, and in 10 seconds... grabs a knife, pulls it out like from his back pocket, slits one officer across the throat, and stabs the other one in the head. In a matter of 10 seconds, okay? One of the officers grabs his gun during this, returns fire, and kills the guy, ends him, okay? They go into the house and find a horrible scene. Obviously, I don't think it's those 2 officers. I think other officers do. they find a horrible scene. Outside, they find an 11-year-old girl. On the inside, they find a 12-year-old boy. There is also a 44-year-old woman and a 30-year-old man, all dead from knife wounds.
So how long did it take him?
Everything that I can tell, the police report isn't out because this is so new. It was a matter of minutes. He switched into rampage mode and started killing everyone. There's no evidence of restraint. It was just one after another.
Did he have bushy eyebrows and wear a dicky suit and Vans?
I know, right? I know.
And did he escape without any blood on him?
Right. But I think this is a good argument, though, that it can be done.
Oh, I know for absolute fact it can be done. The issue is leaving without leaving a trail.
Right, but that's not what this survey was. So
Yeah, I
don't
that.
think it's obvious. I don't think most people believe it can be done. If you do...
No, I don't think most people think that. I absolutely don't think most people think that, which is why it's so interesting, as character analysis pointed out, that the 4chan poster called that out. That it was done in such a short amount of time.
Knew.
Before the PCA. Before anybody had any idea.
Knew, and
there
that's
was
why
no timeline.
It adds value to it, right. But what's interesting here is, okay, so I really want to point out some of the similarities. Before we get to that point, though, I just want to give best wishes to this family. This is
Seriously.
Horrible.
Yeah.
And if you just think about it, this family invited him over to try and help him out and lend him their couch while he got his life together. And for one reason or another, whether it is a diagnosable mental illness or he just wasn't able to cope with whatever was going on in his life, it turned into this. So it was 4 people, maybe 5, you guys. It might actually be a 5th person. There was one person that was in critical condition, and they weren't sure if she was going to make it. So everyone he touched almost or is gone. And then the 2 police officers outside were in critical condition. They were in the hospital for a couple days. They were released on Sunday. So I'm sorry. So this is 6 days ago. This is 6 days ago, not 4. I'm mistaken. But
it was on Saturday the 2nd of December?
Yep. So looking into this, okay, what are the similarities here? Because, one, I don't think people think this is possible. I do not think that the time frame seems possible, all right? Now, what he had was a steak knife. Literally a steak knife.
Oh my
and
gosh.
Committed this kind of crime and heinous act in this short a time with a steak knife.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, so if we're looking at this in comparison to the Idaho 4, you have a K-bar knife, a knife that is designed and made for killing, versus a knife that is not meant for anything combat related.
Yeah, that's the knife that'll break off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this guy was able to do this, plus hurt multiple other officers. So it was a total of 7 people severely harmed from this steak knife, which makes the theory around the K-bar and not breaking, not getting dull. There's all these questions around it. It's a given, in my opinion. I feel
Agreed.
I feel like the K-bar could have gone through 100 people, and I know that sounds harsh, but it's true. I think it could have been used to harm 100 people if you wanted to. And you wouldn't have to worry about breaking or not working or not doing whatever you wanted it to do. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Now, the amount of time is really important. So let's look at this objectively, okay? We have one situation here where we have a guy who knew this house inside and out. He had been living there for months already on the couch, and knew where people were, how they acted, where they hung out, and for whatever reason, he flipped and grabbed a knife and he had the upper hand. All that information's important because it gives them the upper hand in a situation where they're trying to overpower somebody. Now, when we look at the Idaho 4 case, right, we aren't sure if there is any pre-existing knowledge of the layout of the house. We aren't sure if that suspect, whoever you believe it is, knew how many people were in that house. We don't know if they knew they were asleep. We don't know what they knew.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But this was done in under 10 minutes. This one is at 10 minutes or a couple minutes before. I think it's very possible, using this real-life situation as correlating evidence.
Yeah.
I really, really, really do.
No, I absolutely think that a 10-minute time frame is possible.
So
I just don't know if I believe it's possible with all the additional things of not leaving a trace.
with the current storyline, yeah, I agree with you. Maybe there's something else to this.
Yeah.
Maybe, going down the line of thinking that Bryan Kohberger is guilty, and when he was arrested, he asked, am I the only one who was arrested? Did Bryan Kohberger commit this and somebody else drove him? You know what I mean? Like, there's other possibilities out there that you could come up with where it's not Bryan Kohberger's car.
Or did Kohberger drive the person there?
Yeah.
And the person
Fair.
could have been wearing gloves and touched something with Bryan's DNA on it and then transferred it with the gloves to the sheath.
Well, yeah, and yeah, that, or even it's trace DNA. If Bryan Kohberger drove that person, all that knife sheath would have to do is be sitting in the car. That's it. That's all it takes to have trace DNA move around. So yes, there are other theories out there. And again, I've said this already once tonight. I am not trying to prove Bryan Kohberger is innocent or guilty. That's not my interest. My concern is that we don't have a strong case one way or the other, that either we're going to have a guilty person get off and be out back in the streets, or we're going to have an innocent person convicted while the real guilty person is still out there. You know what I mean? It's a fail no matter way you look at it. No matter the way you look at it.
Absolutely. Absolutely it is.
So the other question is, how could somebody do this in this short of time and not tire out?
Adrenaline.
I agree. One argument that could be made here, though, when comparing these two, is that mental instability or a bout of insanity can override a lot of those getting tired. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does.
It's like super strength.
It does override those things.
Yeah. So in the case of the Bronx, is this situation not as comparable because this person was mentally unstable versus somebody in the Idaho 4 case that was controlled, intentional, planned, meticulous? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
Interesting.
It is really interesting looking at it that way.
It is.
I mean, this is literally someone who just lost their mind in this case.
I know.
So it is kind of hard in that respect to compare them.
It is. These aren't perfectly comparable.
No.
But what's interesting is that a crime done in a similar way, in a similar fashion, in a similar time, was completed here. Even if some of the minor details are different.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
important.
It is.
That's really important. because
Yeah.
it shows a real life possibility, not a theory around the Idaho 4 case.
Right.
So,
The cameras, that threw me for a loop. There was
Yeah.
some weird parallels there for a minute and stuff that we've seen online with this case where I was like, whoa.
yeah.
What?
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to find out more about this. But this was 7 people. 4 of them ended in a similar time frame.
Yeah. The poor family.
Yeah. You know what I'm interested about? Is this something that we're going to see the prosecution bring up as an example?
Oh, like, see, it can be done?
Yep. If the defense has an argument saying, hey, you have incompetent cops, and those incompetent cops are trying to create a story that isn't possible, is the prosecution going to be able to take this example and say, hey, you're going off the deep end there. Look at this. This just happened. And this person did it in less time.
Yeah, maybe. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious what you guys think, though, because when I'm looking at this, I still have questions around it, though. I still have questions because clearly this person wasn't trying to control DNA. Clearly this person was a psychotic break. I don't know if I would classify this as premeditated. My heart goes out to the family members that are still around that have to deal with this. That really sucks, but
that's rough. That's hard. That's so hard, I'm sure.
yeah.
I mean, like you said, they were reaching out to try to help him through like a hard time, and that just adds this element to.
It's not only
just makes
that
me feel
too.
bad.
So when they noticed he wasn't doing well mentally, they reached out and had a professional come to the home, and he turned them away and said, "I don't need help. I don't have anything wrong with me. It's them."
Yeah, that's why I know some states are good with this, but some are not. Some make it hard where, like, you can't, like, I know in California they have the 5150 system, you know. Not everywhere has that. Mm-hmm. That is a state thing.
Yeah, it is.
So, I mean, I don't know how New York works, but you need a way to be able to admit people forcefully when they're not in a state of mind where they know that they're not in reality. They can't tell they're not in reality, and they are a harm. They're a danger
to themselves or others.
And you can't allow them to turn away mental health help. Like, there has to be a way to force an assessment. And if that assessment comes back as, this person is a harm to themselves or others, you should be able to forcefully admit them.
I agree.
In some situations, I understand it could get dicey. But, I mean, in the majority of cases, like the case I'm about to talk about, that would have helped a lot.
Yeah.
People would have not died. People would still be here.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree, and I get it. So, I'm curious, you guys.
Yeah.
Do you think this proves that it can be done? Does this make it more likely for you? Does it make it less likely for you? Do you think there's something else going on with this? Because remember, I feel like there's some things in here that make it a little bit easier, but there's also some things in here that make it a little bit harder, like a complete and total understanding of the layout of the house, but steak knife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude, steak knife, for real.
Yeah. And there were 2 kids and a woman, and then a 30-year-old man.
I wonder what kind of quality we're talking about here with the steak knife.
I mean, it just looks like a regular steak knife. Yeah, I've seen a picture of it.
Because there's pretty cheapy ones, and then there's, like, some that are pretty near indestructible.
Yeah. Well, after all this, it was still intact, so.
That's wild.
I know. I'm most curious what you guys think, though.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it? Let us know.
Yeah, let us know. We have updates on the case with baby Zeke, his father, Jeremy Best, who allegedly killed his, baby Zeke's mother, Callie Randall, and she was pregnant. So he's currently facing 2 first-degree murder charges for which it was upgraded. Originally, it was second-degree, and they upgraded it to first-degree with death penalty on the table for both her and her unborn fetus. Now, there are no charges in the baby Zeke case because baby Zeke, unfortunately, was found passed away in the black SUV that he escaped with after killing his wife. So we don't have any charges there yet. It's just for his wife and the unborn fetus right now. And he had his first Zoom hearing. We'll go through some of the details because we have some unsealed documents here too, like the affidavit and stuff, which details, kind of what went on in this case so far, what he did. And in the Zoom hearing, he was super out of it. Like the whole time he's like messing with his face, like rubbing his face. And then when they start the judge starts reading off the charges saying like, what he did to the victims, he's like going, like, it's really strange. Like he's not there. He's out of his mind.
Yeah.
It's sad. Like I wonder if he had moments of coming to reality and realizing in those moments, or if he's just gone completely. And then at one point, so the lawyer that is representing him, because he was assigned a public defender, is Jim Archibald, Lori Vallow, Daybell's lawyer.
Man, he's had a rough couple years.
Yeah, right? Like the nutcase, Lori Vallow Daybell, to now this nutcase, Jeremy Best.
I wonder if he has some kind of specialty.
Maybe. I haven't looked into him too much, like, to see what he does typically. But it is interesting. He's taking another case where, like, clearly this person's off their rocker.
Yeah, it is interesting. Very.
So, we also found out, like, a little bit more that, the mom, she was, like, a silversmith and a very creative person. And, there's some beautiful pictures of their family, and they're living in the mountains. He's, like, a mechanic and opened his mechanic shop. It's I don't know, it seemed like they had things going for them, like the ball was rolling, but it doesn't appear that he's native to that area. It looks like he had moved there. So, in the affidavit, apparently, so we know from last time I talked about how, that day on November 30th, there was a 911 call to a convenience store where they found Jeremy Best naked, reaching over the counter for a cigarette. He went and got assessed and released. And from being released from, his psych evaluation, he then went home. And this is where we pick up the story that's outlined in the affidavit, that around like 11:40 p.m., they get a 911 call. Then it's a hang up and there's yelling, and they can hear a female repeatedly saying, Jeremy, no. There's a sound of like a disturbance, and the male voice is repeating yes, and then says, get the F back, you're going to get shot, followed by I love you, I love you, I love you. And no one is on the line when dispatch picks up the call. Also, I guess when they pulled up, there was a neighbor or something outside that had heard what was going on. So it says while Deputy Christensen was on the way to 4600 Skyline Loop, he passed a single vehicle and observed a partial license plate of 1T39. The vehicle appeared to turn from Skyline Loop to East 5000 South and traveled west towards Highway 33. He arrived to the location, the property. It's a residence located between two shops. He got out of the car, the police officer, and noticed somebody standing across the street. This was one of the neighbors. He said he heard his neighbors fighting. He knew who they were. He knew they had a baby. It's his neighbors.
Yeah.
He was acquainted with them, and he heard them fighting. He told him there's a 7 or 8 month old child in there. Baby Zeke was actually, I think, 10 months. And he said that he heard Callie saying, "Jeremy, stop it, you have a baby." And then he heard about 5 gunshots. And it sounded like they came from outside, not inside. Yeah. And then he saw a black vehicle exiting out of the driveway and leaving southbound. So he went across the street. He started knocking on doors. He walked back down the driveway and located Callie, laying on her left side on the ground under the lean-to of the east side of the north shop. The female was not wearing a shirt or a bra. There was a blue t-shirt and black sweatshirt laying on the ground within close proximity to the body. He approached the body and noticed a large pool of blood underneath and around her. It was laying next to an open door with her feet in close proximity to the door. And observed gunshot wounds to the area of her right breast and right side. He rolled her over and attempted to do CPR, but was unsuccessful. She appeared to be very recently passed away. Just horrible. But he, he goes in and he looks around. They issue an Amber Alert. I'm probably not going to read any more from the probable cause affidavit. I think the only important parts really, I think the important parts are really just that he was driving a black 1995 Chevy Tahoe, which is how I believe they end up locating him later on. But she was 28 weeks pregnant.
Yeah, that's awful. This whole situation sucks, to be honest. The whole thing, it's just...
And that shop that was there was Jeremy's auto repair. That was his auto repair business.
Yeah, I just have one concern in this, right? Like, look, we can hold him accountable. That's not a problem. But I think it's helpful to let the people know why it happened. What happened? What illness does he have? Did he stop taking his meds? Was there a reason for him to stop taking his meds?
We don't know. I mean, we don't know. Not yet.
The late age mental break is so rare.
I think he's still within the time frame, but you're right.
40s.
It is more rare. You're right.
It's very, very, very rare.
He's 48.
Yeah,
so.
That's late.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. But baby Zeke, it's in another county, so we don't know what's going on with that. But I know that his lawyers, Archibald, requested a competency test. To see, Yeah. I don't think there's any way he's being declared fit to stand trial right now. So they're going to go through a long process. This is probably going to take a really long time.
Yeah.
So,
it sounds like the cops did everything that they should have done in this situation, though. It's just an unfortunate situation where there's not much you could do, not many options, you know, but the cops did everything they could do.
yeah, I think that they did. I mean, I think really my issue here is the fact that he was released.
Yeah, that's not a cop thing, though.
No,
That's
it's
a
not.
hospital
the
thing.
cop is
Yeah.
the cops have nothing to do with that.
Yeah, from the 5150.
Right. That's where I have a problem, is that you might be right in what you said the other day when we were talking about this, that maybe he didn't have insurance because he owned his own business. And if that's the reason they released him, I think they should be held liable in some way.
Yeah.
I don't think mental health facilities that take people from cops, like literally the cops picked him up, I don't think they should be able to turn people away or release them early just because they can't pay. It should be like an ER.
Yep.
Where
it
they
should
can't
be.
refuse you. They can't turn you out, or else they're held liable if something happens.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be a better system because lives are still on the line here. And actually, there's probably more lives on the line with this than even at an ER. At least in an ER, the only life you really have to worry about is the one that you're tending to. Now, in a situation like this, it's an endless amount of possibilities for lives in jeopardy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
But yeah.
It's really unfortunate, really sad.
Yeah, it was in Idaho Falls. They were searching for the car. They got some kind of tip by a hiker, and they found Jeremy sleeping naked in a sleeping bag on the side of the road. And it's cold out there. Like, they had snow. It's very cold out there. And baby Zeke, the original report I read said he was found in the woods, and that gave me the impression he was found not in the vehicle, but he was found in the Chevy Tahoe, like off an embankment. And I'm sure with no heat on. So I'm wondering, did he die from freezing to death? Like, did his father do something to him? We don't know yet. We don't know yet. But he was
awful, regardless what the circumstances are or what it could be. I mean,
right?
Yeah.
And apparently Jeremy was also like pacing or something, saying weird things, something like that. But
I don't think there's any question that he lost his mind.
yeah,
It's gone.
I see speculation. People are saying that they think it could be drug induced, which is possible.
Maybe.
It's very possible.
It doesn't change.
But would he continue to be out of it even after not having that drug for this long? Like for a couple days? Like even 24 to
It could
48
be.
hours?
Could be.
Like
Yeah.
this gone? Because he was
Yeah.
really gone. Like
I
in the
think
Zoom hearing.
When you get a true drug-induced psychosis, you are truly in psychosis. You're not here. You're gone.
So what, he may need meds to like...
To be stabled and then taken off them, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
It's absolutely possible. But this sounds horrible, and I feel awful.
Yeah.
A whole family flipped upside down and gone.
Yeah. Gone. Like that they were... I mean, she was pregnant. Like they were building their own little family,
Yeah.
And it's
Sad.
super sad. So I heard some people also speculating he could be faking. I don't think so.
Yeah, where's the benefit in that? He's not going to get out in this lifetime.
No.
Even if they label him as clinically insane, he will be in a...
And Idaho doesn't allow a plea for insanity. It's not
Okay.
allowed in
Okay.
Idaho. So,
That's good. I forgot about that.
and even if that were the case, he would go to a mental health facility for the rest of his life.
Yep.
He would not be on the streets again.
Yep.
Yeah, but there's absolutely, Idaho doesn't allow it. It's within their state laws. So he can't get a insanity plea. It's just not possible unless they make some kind of amendment to that. But he also got, he got 2 first-degree murder charges in addition to enhancement of using a firearm during the commission of a crime. And I think they said that carried like 15 years. But he's already got life and DP on the table, so.
Yeah.
But his next hearing is going to be December 18th at 9:30 a.m. It's going to be a preliminary hearing. I'm really curious to see, like, how that's going to go, because it doesn't sound like that one's going to be a Zoom hearing. So I'm really curious to see how he's going to behave in the courtroom, and also...
if they let him. It's
right.
going to depend.
It is going to depend. But he's got no bond, of course. And yeah, so we'll wait until that court hearing and see what happens. And also waiting to see if additional charges are filed for baby Zeke, which I assume they will be. It's just a different county in Idaho Falls than Victor, Idaho. So
sad situation.
Yeah.
Very sad situation.
Yeah. Looking at the pictures of their family and baby Zeke, it makes me really sad.
Yeah.
It just was unnecessary, and they could still be here if the system worked.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not their fault. Like, I mean, I guess it is kind of weird they released him. Could he have been faking to try to get away with it? But in Idaho, you can't make that plea. So, I mean, did he not know that? I mean, do you think it's even possible he could be faking? Because I don't. I don't really think that's possible. But it also begs the question, why was he released? Because if he was acting anything like he was in the Zoom hearing, he should not have been. You can tell he's in psychosis.
Yeah.
You can tell he is not here.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't even keep it normal for court.
Yeah. He's gone.
But I want to know what you guys think. But yeah, that's it.
All right. And that is it for the podcast tonight. Episode 22, Thought Riot Podcast, True Crime and Criminal Culture. My name is Brendan.
I am Malia.
And make sure you do all the podcast things. Hit those notifications, comments, like, subscribe. Do all the things on all the things. And come hang out on the next live.
Yeah.
We'll be here waiting on you this entire time.
Yep,
From right this second until you come hang out with us.
We'll just be sitting here.
The whole time. And that is it. See you next time.
Yep. Bye.